Hello, everyone. Michael Jordan fans are the best. And today we're going to talk about the Spurs' effect on the NBA and LeBron James' legacies. First, before we get into that, I want to welcome the panel. Angry Old Hoops, how are you doing today?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Good to see everybody.
Absolutely. Uncommon Sense, how are you?
Great. I hope
Uh,
everybody like and subscribe on the way in the door.
Abso- Absolutely. Sports and Fitness Rants, Robin, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Shout out to everybody in the panel today, man. Hope everybody's doing good, man. Let's do it, fellas.
And Hoop God, this is uncharacteristic of you. You've made it to the panel before the show has started. How are you today?
Man, hey, Don, I'm getting better, man. I appreciate it, man. Working on
Awesome.
my punctuality. I'm doing that.
Awesome. Um, but
Dart,
yeah, what's up?
I just want to say a couple of things real quick, please. Shout out to the man behind the music, Uncommon Sense. Everybody digs that jam. Um, anyway, I've thanked you on my channel, but I just wanted to do it here. And I also want to give a shout out to my subscribers because I don't do it on my channel. I'm sorry, I'm not very good about that. I'm just barely keeping up with the editing, but I do appreciate all of you, and I hope many of you are on here today.
Absolutely. Michael asked, "Is Rex okay?" Rex is okay. I asked him if he wanted to come today. He said he had something going on. But Rex is okay. For the people that are asking, he just hasn't been available the last couple weeks. I know a lot of people love them some Rex, but yeah, he's not available this week. Um, but yeah, so first things first, Angry Old Hoops, you'll be first in the shoot. How do you
Yeah.
think the Spurs affected the NBA and LeBron James legacies? What do you think their impact is, just in general, on the sport of professional basketball in the greatest league in the world, the NBA?
Okay. Wow. That goes back a ways. I got to spend some time on this if you don't mind. I'll tell an old man story. I became aware of the Spurs and David Robinson really because of a VHS tape called Dazzling Dunks and Basketball Bloopers, which came with your Sports Illustrated subscription. This is like 1988 or something like that. And it showed David Robinson just blocking the shit out of people. And I was like, oh, I need to start paying attention to this because I really wasn't paying attention to the Spurs otherwise. It was all Michael Jordan, Celtics, Lakers. And let's see. Then I remember the Spurs in 1999 going against Spreewell. I remember Duncan having to go against Shaq, and I was so angry during all of that. He had to face Shaq for so long, and Shaq was so big, it always seemed unfair to me, and I was always screaming at the television because I thought the refs helped the Lakers like crazy. I remember Duncan blocking Shaq. You didn't get to see that very often, and they would not show a replay of it. And so began my conspiracy theories. I was like, this is bullshit. And I actually had an older brother who I recall when the Spurs were heading on their next run with Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, just people being like, we like the Spurs because of their fundamentals. They get the job done, but they aren't flashy. They aren't all talking. And against the Miami Heat, it was a case of like almost the exact opposites. You had the epitome of individualism on the Miami Heat, and you had the epitome of unselfishness and fundamentals on the Spurs. So people like me desperately wanted the Spurs to beat the Miami Heat. In terms of their impact on LeBron James, it wasn't as big of an impact as I would like because they should have beat him in 2013. LeBron James should have disappeared into oblivion right then instead of Ray Allen getting him another title. So I actually am really angry. And I remember Ginobili looked like he owed the Mafia money in Game 6. I was just like, what the F are you doing? And when Ray Allen hit that shot, I walked out of the bar. I had my tab open. I just started walking. I think I walked for like 7 miles and didn't stop. I was so angry. But the Spurs showed you that you can get the job done and be, quiet and be humble. And I think that appealed to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. That well said. Uncommon Sense, what do you have to say about AOH's take and just a question at large? How did the Spurs affect the NBA and LeBron James legacies?
I completely agree with his take. One of the things that I remember is before the Spurs got Tim Duncan, I feel like David Robinson, his mental toughness was questioned to a certain degree. Like he was kind of seen as the nice guy. And I think Tim Duncan, ironically, he's quiet, but he has like that quiet intensity that I think the Spurs needed to get over that hump. But one of the things about the Spurs that you can say is, first of all, they were the last team to win in the 90s. They won in the 2000s, and they won in the 2010s. So to me, it's a lot of stuff about how it affected the NBA. To me, they were one of the last teams to deny Patrick Ewing that ability to win a ring. As far as affecting LeBron James' legacy, to me, it affected in so many ways. I did a video, and to me, the Spurs, especially winning in 2014, when you compare it to Michael Jordan, like I said, Michael Jordan, once he got to the top of the hill, he stayed there and no one interrupted that as long as he was playing the season. But LeBron James, if you want to classify his era, I always say a player era starts from when they win their first championship. So if you want to classify it as 2012 on, well, the Spurs were still able to come back, Tim Duncan at an older age, and still win against LeBron, along with, Golden State obviously having a dynasty during LeBron's career. So, I think that's how it affects LeBron amongst some other ways that I'll mention later.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we have a super chat. So here we go. I thought this might be the case. So there's a ticker on the bottom. If you're in the show, or excuse me, if you're super chatting somebody in the show, please say who you're super chatting it to so they can be addressed directly. So I'm going to put this up for a little while just in case people want to do it. I'm trying to find some sort of prompt because saying it so many times, a lot of people come into the show later on. Everyone knows how it goes. But Adidas 20 has super chatted somebody saying in 2007 the Spurs forced James to shoot, and we see how that went. Is Adidas somebody's member or a member of somebody's channel, or does somebody recognize that name off the top of their head? I just know it's not. He's not super chatting me. All right. If not, let's let Robin start off with it, and then answering this question just for the sake of moving the show forward, and then roll into your takes about what Uncommon Sense and AOH had said, and how did the Spurs affect the NBA and LeBron James' legacy? What do you have to say about in 2007 the Spurs forced James to shoot, and we see how that went?
Yeah, well, obviously, when we're talking about that super chat, the comment from whoever it was for the four, shout out to you guys out there. But once again, this exposes LeBron James that we're always talking about, the kinds of things that force him to struggle. When they talk about forcing the jump shot, it's not only the forcing him to shoot out perimeter shots, it was the type of defense he was going against. When you're talking about someone like a Bruce Bowen, who was forcing LeBron James to take tough shots, right, by playing that physical style of defense that we're always alluding to, that we talk about from the 80s and the 90s, some of these previous eras. You see what the physicality does to a LeBron James. But not only when we talk about a Bruce Bowen, you can also talk about Andre Iguodala in 2015, the same kind of style of defense, the physical, all-in-your-face defense. It forces LeBron James to struggle. Also, a Kawhi Leonard we could talk about from other finals. So absolutely. When we talk about what my man AOH talked about, my man Uncommon was talking about, it's much of the same, man. I back everything that they're saying is 100% of the money. When we talk about that play style that AOH was alluding to, this is what made people fall in love with the San Antonio Spurs, even if you weren't fans of the Spurs. like we talked, like he said, it wasn't about the flash per se. It was about the substance of what they were getting done. That's how these guys ran the operation. It was like a well-oiled machine. This is why the Spurs went to what? Like 20 seasons in a row of going to the playoffs, an NBA record, whatever it was, because of the consistency. We talk about a Tim Duncan. This is the one thing that eludes LeBron James, the consistency. And this is what made Tim Duncan so great. No, he didn't have the flash. He didn't have the gaudy stats, the numbers per se, as maybe a Kevin Garnett, for example, right? But what did Tim Duncan have? The steady hand, the steady demeanor that my man Uncommon was alluding to, man. The personality, the even-keeled nature of someone like a Tim Duncan, the steady, quiet toughness, right? The grit of Tim Duncan. So when we talk about the Spurs organization as a whole, you know, it's funny how last live stream we were talking about how the narratives for LeBron James have, you know, they bend, right, with all the years, and they bend with what? To try to catch up with whatever exposes him. So when we think about the Spurs and the loss he had in 2007, what did the narrative shift to? Oh, well, LeBron James was only 23 years old, or he was 22 years old, whatever it was. They use the age as a narrative, but they don't want to use that same excuse for a Kawhi Leonard, who was the same age in 2014, but somehow he managed to win a Finals MVP under the same kind of conditions. So once again, this is where the narrative shifts. Also, what do you hear the LeBron James fans talk about to support LeBron James versus a San Antonio Spurs, a Tim Duncan? They talk about the oh crap, I lost what I was saying for a second. But they talk about how he was able to stop the Spurs dynasty. When did he ever stop a Spurs dynasty? So they'll use the 2013 victory over the Spurs to say that he somehow thwarted the dynasty of the Spurs. But for me personally, the Spurs dynasty, to me, the true Spurs dynasty was in that reign between the 99 and the 07 championship. For me, even if you want to think about from 03 to 07, that window right there where they won those 3 championships in 5 seasons, to me, that is the Spurs dynasty. Them being like a contender all those years and being in the finals in 2013 and losing and then coming back and avenging in 14, that's nothing. That doesn't prove anything. And once again, that's not, to me, the Spurs dynasty. So these guys are right on the money.
Real fast, user 1990 has super chatted me. He said his dad be on that Balco. And yeah, I can't, I don't know.
That's the new slogan.
Yeah, I don't know for a fact that LeBron James has been on the Balco, but it wouldn't surprise me just for everything considering it. But thank you, user 1990, for the super chat. It is hilarious just to say stuff like that. Yeah, Hoop God. What is your take on what everyone has said, and then how did the Spurs affect the NBA and LeBron James legacies?
So first and foremost, I agree with everything all the other gentlemen have said. Actually, the Spurs, like the more I started to get in depth in basketball, the more I started to appreciate the Spurs, because when I would say in my nation stages, I didn't really understand what the Spurs brought to the game of basketball until I started to look at it in a more active point of view, in a sense. And what I mean by that is the effect that the Spurs, they brought the beauty of basketball from a macrocosmic perspective, like with their ball movement, their selfless play, the good pass, giving up a good shot for a great shot. The defense, the execution, and just being methodical. I mean, one thing I can say about the Spurs, like, not to minimize them, but they never beat themselves. And that's one of the things that LeBron James struggled with. But I'm going to get to him a little later, because I want to actually speak on the Spurs before I begin to dissect his career. The Spurs brought a winning culture back to the NBA from a team perspective. And what I mean by that, not to say that the Bulls didn't, because they were awesome, but the Spurs kind of reminded me of like the 86 Celtics, if that makes sense, like with their ball movement, being able to execute in the half court, but also being adaptable. That's another thing that I don't think the Spurs get credit for, because they never played each opponent the same. Like when they played the Dallas Mavericks, they had a different approach. When they played the Lakers, they had a different approach. Just like when they played the Cavs in 07, they had a different approach, because Tony Parker was pretty much unstoppable. He led both teams in scoring, and he also increased his point per game average on a certain somebody. But you know, they love to say he can play all 5 positions, but that's not the here nor there. Like an Uncommon said, the Spurs, people don't talk about them winning in the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s. So Tim Duncan, like they love to talk about this one guy going to 10 finals away. I don't care about appearances. Like, those are participation points. Did you win? If you hear the great Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. Bill Belichick quoted this: stats are for losers. It's the end results. And did you win or did you lose? And that's what the Spurs did. They won. They may not have won pretty. They might not have won fancy, but they won. That's the goal in basketball. That is the core competition, to win, which is why that franchise has been so successful. And I want to say that they have a 72% of winning from Tim Duncan's rookie year until he ultimately retired. So that shows his impact. A 19-year consecutive championship window for that organization. Because again, if you don't like the flashy style of play, like I tell people, don't watch the Spurs, because they're just going to lull you to sleep. But if you're a basketball enthusiast and you love what they bring to the game, then you're gonna watch it and you're gonna be excited, because one thing you're not gonna see is guys pointing at each other and all that nonsense like the cupped hands. You're not gonna see that, because Popovich doesn't allow it. And not only that, but he coaches Tim Duncan hard. And I think that's something else that doesn't get brought to the forefront. Popovich would coach Tim Duncan a certain way, but he told him in advance, hey, Timmy, look, if I can't coach you hard, then the other guys are going to be like, well, hey, I'm not standing for that. So it always starts at the top. And that's one thing I appreciate about Tim Duncan as well. He allowed Pop to coach him a certain way. Why? Because that's going to make everybody else get in line, like Manu, like Tony, like Bruce Bowen, and all the other ones. And people don't consider the Spurs a dynasty. I do. I mean, I get the whole concept about winning 3 in a row, or 3 in a 5 or 4 year span. But to get there in the 90s, to get there in the 2000s, and then in the 2010s and still win, to me, that's enough to call them a dynasty. Because again, they only got beat by one team on a miracle shot by Jesus Shuttlesworth. That wasn't Ray Allen right then and there. That was Jesus Shuttlesworth. Okay. But I'm saying that to say that the effect that the Spurs also brought, and people don't talk about this enough, they stopped the Lakers from 4-peating. They stopped the Pistons from repeating, and they stopped the Heatles from 3-peating. Now, that's another reason why I call them a dynasty, because if you can stop another team from completing those milestones, then I'm like, well, how do you not consider them a dynasty? Granted, they didn't go back-to-back, but I also tell them they played in the Western Conference, okay? They played where, if any of you guys watched the 300 Spartans, that's what they had to go through, okay? They didn't have the red carpet laid out and cupcakes at the end of the finish line to say, hey, here you go. No, they had to fight and scrap to get there. So if those guys got eliminated by the Memphis Grizzlies, a grit and grind defensive team, or got knocked out by the Dallas Mavericks, who was also an integral team in that 2000s, that's not gonna be a negative mark, because again, they got eliminated by a 50-win team. It ain't like they got eliminated by some sub 50-win team and they just got outplayed. But moving along with the Spurs, before I get into the other gentleman that we're speaking on, when the Spurs, when they first got, I would say, Tim Duncan, like Uncommon said, yeah, David Robinson was talented, but he just wasn't that. He didn't have that it factor. Like he said, he was kind of like the nice guy. But Tim Duncan was a whole different side of the coin. He was silent. He was stoic. It's like, I'm not gonna get into no back and forth. Like Kevin Garnett's on record saying it. He couldn't shake him. He would always try to get in Tim Duncan's head. But see, that's mental toughness, right? And that's what Pop coached. So Tim Duncan displayed it, and he was able to augment his teammates with that. And that's another thing that I appreciate with the Spurs. But getting into Mr. LeBron James, this is what I saw with the Spurs, right? They forced him into his weak points. They forced him to play where he was uncomfortable, i.e. at the top of the key. So if you look in 2007, people say, oh, he was getting triple team. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. The only time he was getting triple team is when he did get to the basket. But for the vast majority of that series, Bruce Bowen was his number one assignment. And Bruce Bowen held him to 35% shooting from the field, which is atrocious. Not only that, but he led both teams in turnovers, which is atrocious. Not only that, but he was horrible from the free throw line and the three-point line. Now, if LeBron James would have had a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant approach, you know what he would have done? Immediately after that series, he would have got it with a shooting coach and would have improved on his weaknesses. But no, he didn't, because again, like Sports and Fitness Rant said, the media coddled him. They coddled him and say, oh, he was just 22. I don't care about being 22. Tim Duncan was 22 and was a Finals MVP his second year in the league. Magic Johnson was 20 years old when Kareem went down, won the championship. Larry Bird came in at 23. His second season was a champion. So, no, I'm not listening to no age. That ain't nothing but an excuse. Because if you get to the finals, like Stephen A. said about Allen Iverson, you got to win one game. Getting swept, that's just unacceptable. So let's move on to 2013. This is one of my favorite series because it doesn't get talked about enough. It's amazing.
Hoop God, real fast, just to address some of these super chats.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, none of the above is super chatted. AOH. AOH, who is the LeBron of the 90s, 80s, and 70s?
Of when?
The 90s, 80s, and 70s.
There was none. Nobody acted like that.
Nate Thurman. I would say Nate Thurman in the 70s.
Well, why? Educate me.
Don't insult Nate Thurman like that, man. Come on, man. Don't compare Thurman to LeBron James. Nate Thurman's not flopping around like that.
Yeah, that's true. No, AOH, I'm saying if you look at his physique, right, how I would just say his prototype. But no, Nate Thurman, like Sports and Fitness Rant says, no, he did not flop. He wasn't a diva, none of that. I was only saying it because that's who he looks like just in comparison. But no, he was nothing like Nate Thurman. That dude was a dog. That's facts.
Yeah, just personality-wise, nobody goes on television and says the shit that LeBron James says without getting beaten up in the alley afterward back then. I mean, he's just so embarrassing as a human being. Forget the basketball party.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to say about it, AOH, before we get to the next super chat real fast?
No, that really caught me off guard. I don't there is no other LeBron James, especially not in previous eras.
Yeah. And then Adidas 20 super chats. So just to educate you, because we've had Roland Curtis on here super chatting before. It's not that easy just to split up a super chat. So please, at least if you have a question for the panel, that's fine. But please say who you're actually sending it to, if that's what you meant. But at the same time, we're trying to keep the show going. So please have it to a pointed person, whoever you're super chatting, for the future. Adidas says James' first year in Miami. James said he was cheated from being Defensive Player of the Year. Shane Battier played tough players.
That's a flat out lie.
All right, what do you have to say about that, Hoop God?
So I love the fact that they bring this up. Okay, so Mark Gasol in 2013, whatever year that was, he had better defensive ratings across the board. And when you go to defensive box plus minus, his was higher than LeBron's. His defensive rating was higher than LeBron's. His defensive rating actually was better than his team. So that right there shows you his impact. Without him on the floor, their opponents scored far more points than they did when he was on the floor. As a matter of fact, when Marc Gasol was on the floor, the opponents didn't even touch 90 points per game. See, that's what they don't want to talk about. His defensive win shares was better. He averaged more rebounds, more blocks, more defensive rebounds and total rebounds. So no, I don't want to hear none of this. He got robbed. He did not get robbed. Marc Gasol won that Defensive Player of the Year fair and square. They only say that he was all defensive second team is because he couldn't beat out Tim Duncan. I mean, who was LeBron's competition at the small forward? Do any of y'all know? I don't. So when I hear them say that, I'm like, I don't want to hear that. That is a flat out lie because it doesn't take but a modicum of research to go look up those metrics and see that Marc Gasol by far was more impactful. And at the end of the day, we know what's more important, somebody on the perimeter or that last line of defense anchoring the defense. Okay, that's a rhetorical question. So no, I don't want to hear he got cheated. No, he did not. He did not even earn that Defensive Player of the Year because he was getting lit up in the playoffs easily by players playing his position. So thank you for that, Dart.
Man Down Sports is in the house. Man Down Sports, I sent you the link. If you want to call in, you're welcome to call in and join the panel. But he says Len Bias was similar to LeBron, only physically.
Mentally, way tougher. Mentally, way tougher.
So I'm going to give my take on how do the Spurs affect the NBA and LeBron James legacies and talk about what y'all have been saying. I think that the biggest thing how the Spurs affected the NBA specifically is the concept of having, because in the early 2010s, at least, I don't want to talk about the 2000s when they were competing with the Triangle and Phil Jackson with Greg Popovich. And just to I got a ticket right here with the Spurs ticket. So I'm a little biased towards Tim Duncan, and I was a Tim Duncan guy over a Kobe guy back in the day. So I always loved Tim Duncan because the big fundamental did everything right for the most part, in my opinion. He didn't go, excuse me, out of the way to go and do any fancy stuff. He just played the game the right way. So that was something I appreciated, and I thought it was amazing what he was able to do over his entire career outside of the lockout season, winning 50 games every season for his entire career. But I think what the Spurs did in the 2010s after beating the Heat is I think that especially with Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich, I think that the whole Warrior system was an eventuality of the Spurs longevity dominance, and I think that they tried to create a new system. So in short, without going down that rabbit hole very much, uh that I'm sorry, I got a private chat. Hoop God, you can you can come back and talk in a minute, but just give me a second. So the yeah, with the Greg Popovich thing, I think he had a lot of influence indirectly with the Warriors becoming the next thing. The next thing that I want to talk about with LeBron James is that he got stomped out twice by Tim Duncan. And
Facts.
yeah, he got stomped. Tim Duncan and the Spurs stomped him twice, and they should have won that other time outside of Ray Allen. AOH, you were talking about watching that game live, and yeah, it was crazy. That was two moments of recent history that upset me the most was that, and then also for me, I'm a Sixers fan, so that Kawhi running around the rim, that ball with that last second game 7 3-point shot. So, being a Sixers fan, that was the most terrible thing that could have happened to me. But I think that if anything, uh, we got so many super chats coming in, so I'm gonna cut it off here. But yeah, with the LeBron James thing, I think that if anything, that them and the Warriors, just to tie it all together, have really stomped out his potential of his legacy. Not that he has a bad legacy, LeBron James, but for him to be considered the GOAT, he got beat multiple times by the same guys, and especially with Tim Duncan and his team, they were all in their mid 30s. Tim Duncan, outside of Kawhi, who was I think in his second or third year when they played in the finals, was the only real perennial player. Not to say that Ginobili and Parker are overrated in any respect, but they were not considered to be the best players in the league. They were just on a great team. But real fast, I get through some of these super chats that came up. Keith Cunningham, Sports and Fitness, appreciate your work. It's much needed, even though I grew up in the 90s. We respected the eras before that. What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. Much respect, man. Everybody who's been super chatting, thank you for all the support, guys. That's right. That's what it's all about. It's all about setting the record straight, guys. Stopping the lies and stopping the narratives. It don't matter what era you grew up watching, right? All the guys from this previous era, all the fans of this era continue to crap on the 2000s, the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, the 60s. Everyone's taxi cab drivers and plumbers, man. So that's right, man. It's all about putting respect on these guys. Much respect to everybody in the chat. Thank you.
And then Pierre Lynch has super chatted me. He says, "Hey Dart, how are you? God bless this channel." Thank you, Pierre. Again, much appreciated. We got to hear more stories from you. I got to get Rex back on here so we could talk about all the old school stuff with you guys playing around with pros and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, Hoop God. People are saying they want to hear from some people. Some people come in haven't heard Uncommon Sense amongst others. I know you said you want a couple points. Can you do the alibis for that, and then can we, if you don't mind, if we could just go into the next subject?
Oh yeah, it won't even take long. I just wanted to wrap on what Sports and Fitness Rants had brought up about the 2007 finals, and I just wanted to touch on it because if you go back and watch that finals now with the Cavs actually were the number 4th team in defensive efficiency, which is great, phenomenal. They held Tim Duncan to 44% shooting, and the X factor, like I said earlier, was Tony Parker. LeBron James could not stop him to save his life. Tony Parker averaged, I want to say, 18.6 per game in the regular season points per game. He increased that to 24 against LeBron James. But this is supposed to be the guy that defends 1 through 5, another narrative. And then in 2014, I know when you look at his numbers just on the surface, they're going to say, oh, he was great. No, he wasn't. Because 60% of his shots came, not his shots, his points came when the game was already out of reach. That's why they lost by a record 15-point margin, because he was getting all those empty stats, those hollow stats, which is what he's great at doing, because he knows it's going to make him look good on the back end. But if you go look at that plus minus, he was a negative 47. And he was getting torched so bad by Kawhi Leonard, they had to take him off of Kawhi Leonard. They had to throw Shane Battier and all those other guys out there to handle the smoke that Kawhi was giving on him, because LeBron wasn't even doing the little things, boxing out, getting back on getting back on defense. You know, if you can't get the rebound, box out the other man. Play help defense. I mean, find other ways to impact the game, like Larry Bird. Because they always say, oh, he had an 8-point game. Yeah, but Larry Bird also had 15 rebounds in one game, 21 in the other game. He was getting back on defense. He was setting hard picks. You know, he was getting easy. Just those little intangibles. But that's what I wanted to get out of there. Thank you, Dart. I appreciate that.
I got a comment on Hoop God before I forget everything.
Oh, go ahead, AOH.
That cool, Dart?
I don't know. Yo, Dart stepped off. Go ahead, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points. You know, if you're doing the little things, if you're doing whatever it takes to win, you don't get swept. You just don't get
exactly.
swept.
Exactly.
Can you at least,
thank you.
Can you at least make it a gentleman's sweep? You can't be the GOAT and have gotten swept. When you have the GOAT on your team, that means that you have a person who finds a way to win despite the odds, despite the adversity. LeBron James, despite having stacked advantages, finds a way to lose, which is crazy. Now, what do the Warriors and the Spurs have in common? Drafted teams with not particularly intimidating players. You know, as good as some of the fundamentals or the coaching were, it was team ball that overcame just superior athleticism and individuals. And when you put together groups of mercenaries, which on paper means you should win, you know, in Vegas, everybody's going to say, yeah, that team's going to win. And then you lose to a team that learned how to come together through draftees, you should be ashamed of yourself. And they also, I mean, go back and look at 2014, 15, 16. Steph Curry looks like he's in fucking 7th grade. And this is who LeBron James is picking on. And the Spurs, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, you want to talk about some skinny looking, no muscle having plumbers, and that's who LeBron was going against. Now, let's see. Hoop God brought up David Robinson and some perceived softness. In his defense, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because physically he looked like he should have been destroying people. But when Robinson came to the Spurs, I think people need to understand how terrible the Spurs were. In my opening monologue, I mentioned that you know, I wasn't thinking about the Spurs until David Robinson, and there's a reason for that. And they actually set a franchise record for turnaround from worst record to improved record when David Robinson came in. Just a little trivia in David Robinson's defense. One person in the super chat talking about LeBron getting robbed of Defensive Player of the Year. You know why that person said that? Because Nick Wright and some other idiots mentioned it recently. All these people do is repeat what the media tells them to fucking think. You have no idea what happened back then. You have no idea if LeBron James deserved it. He didn't.
They're puppets.
Oh, you fucking boomers.
They're puppets, bro. That's what they do. Like, I can tell when I've heard a regurgitated narrative, because they will say it verbatim. They won't even mix it up to at least be a little deceptive. Like, bro, I heard Shannon Sharp say this 2 years ago. He can go at 1 through 5. Well, how come he got lit up by a player that played every position against him in the finals or the playoffs?
And I left out in my opening monologue, 2007. You know, how do I leave out the 2007 sweep when I'm talking about the Spurs and LeBron James? Well, let me flip the impact that the Spurs had on LeBron. What about the impact that LeBron had on the Spurs? Creating these unmemorable finals. Like, how many finals did LeBron go to where you're like, and now the 2007, me being a Bay Area guy, to me is the we believe year. That was the most interesting that happened in the playoffs to me. The Warriors doing things that they shouldn't have done. And
You know,
right
I forgot about that slogan. I remember that now since you brought it up.
Hey, AOH, you talking about when Baron Davis posterized what was his name? Karolinko?
Yeah, we went nuts. I was in a bar in the
nasty.
hate. Holy
that was nasty.
shit. Everybody erupted. Even people that didn't know what basketball was were like, my God, what did we just see? And shortly after that, I flew to South Africa. I had some wildlife gig down there. And I was trying to, everybody there is into rugby. I was trying to get people to watch the finals while I was there. And it ended up being the Spurs and Cleveland. And boy, was I embarrassed trying to get people to like basketball watching that fucking beatdown.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're supposedly the GOAT. You just can't.
Absolutely. Adidas 20 has super chatted again. But I don't know who it's to yet again. But it's not to me. I know that Parker also led the 2007 finals in paint points.
Yep. I forgot about that. Yes, he did. So LeBron James, once again, could not stop Tony Parker to save his life.
And then Pierre Lynch goes and he says that I think this is to you, Robin. But he says, "Hey, Robin, Uncommon Sense, Hoop God 23 AOH, just a shout out super chat. You guys are the best."
Hey, we appreciate that, bro.
Yo, for real, much respect. Thank you.
The truth don't lie. That's what I tell people. The truth does not tell lies.
Oh, here's another one. Uncommon. Uncommon Sense, it was led with you first. How can LeBron be the GOAT when he's shooting 75% from the line? I'm sub to all your channels, to Angry Old Hoops and Sports and Fitness Rants as well. But since he led with you first, Uncommon Sense, what do you have to say about how can LeBron be the GOAT when he's shooting 75% from the line?
He can't. I feel like I've always compared LeBron to Shaq, except to me, Shaq has more of a reason of why he shoots so horribly. And I'm not saying, because I feel like I've always been hard on Shaq too for not improving that free throw percentage. But LeBron, to me, it's just like one of the many things. Like, even if we're talking about the 2007 finals, I just went back and watched that maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I watched that series again. And to me, like, one of the things that stood out going back and rewatching it is the things that are so glaring about LeBron's game now actually was happening back then. Like this inconsistency of playing defense and some of these other things. And like I said, that's why I've always said, you know, LeBron gets, the people in the media like to say LeBron is a great defender. No, LeBron James has made great defensive plays at times, but he has never been a consistency elite defender. That's one of the things that stood out in that 2007 series to me, along with the fact that, you know, to me, just you could see that the leadership on the Spurs, which was much better and much more cohesive as a team than what the Cavaliers was. You know, a lot of time the Cavaliers felt like they weren't really being led by anybody, you know. And another thing I noticed about that series is that there were times where other players seemed to be putting in more energy than LeBron James, the supposed leader of the team. And so, but anyway, that was long and short of that. That 75% from the free throw line is just one of many reasons why LeBron James should not even be mentioned. I mean, he shouldn't be in consideration. This shouldn't be a conversation.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's well said. I want to go and ask another question just to go around the horn, as they say again. Angry Old Hoops, do you think that Tim Duncan is a greater basketball player than LeBron James?
Basketball player, yeah. I think people are going to want to go down the argument of physicality and athleticism. I don't, there's even I would have to concede that, LeBron James, it was built in a pretty intimidating fashion, especially after he went to Miami and suddenly put on 30 pounds of muscle overnight. But Tim Duncan, geez, LeBron James has had the size advantage throughout his career in his position. He's usually had people that he could have shot over from perimeter if he'd had the balls to do it, much less dunk on people driving to the lane. The bulk of his dunks through his career are alley-oops, thanks to great teammates. Tim Duncan is going against really intimidating centers and finding ways. And I know Tim Duncan isn't officially a center, but he was down there doing that job a lot of the time. Finding any way to possibly shut down Shaq or score against Shaq, when you clearly aren't, what was Shaq, 200 pounds heavier than Duncan? You got to give someone credit for their basketball skills in a situation like that.
Absolutely. Uncommon Sense, what's your take on if Tim Duncan's a greater basketball player than LeBron and what AOH had to say?
Here's the unfortunate thing about LeBron, and I think this is one of the things that gets on my nerves the most is I think the fact of the matter is LeBron James had the potential to be better than a lot of people.
Right.
But I mean, I can't say that he is a better basketball player than Tim Duncan. Again, for the same reason that I always say is LeBron James is so inconsistent and he has never worked on, I mean, they call, Tim Duncan the big fundamental. And it's so many times watching LeBron James just not doing the fundamental things that, I'm like, you out here begging people to call you to go, begging for respect, yet you're not fixing these things. Like arguably with your physique in the era that you played in, people should view you as the GOAT. Like you had that potential. I always say if LeBron James had Michael Jordan's mentality, I don't think we'll be having the discussion. Now, I still think it would be an arguable discussion, but I think if he had that mentality where he would have actually worked on his game, like I said, since 2007, his best years were in Miami. And I think that's because in Miami, he had some people holding him accountable. But the ridiculous thing is that when he leaves Miami, everything goes back downhill again. So it's like no one there to hold him accountable. So he goes right back to, I guess, who he actually is as a person. And that is, I'd rather convince you that I'm the GOAT than prove I'm the GOAT. And I think Tim Duncan, along with a long list of players, are definitely better than LeBron James. They're more consistent than LeBron James. They're more fundamentally sound than LeBron James. I think they care about the game of basketball more so than LeBron James, who just cares about the praise. So I think Tim Duncan is better.
All right, real fast to none of the above. I'll let AOH answer it. I think that's probably who he's sending it to if he's mentioning you first. True or false? LeBron's so-called defense prowess is based on highlight chase down blocks and being allowed to foul his opponents. What's your take? True or false?
It's a huge part of it. It's not the complete answer, but it's a huge part of it. Just like I pointed out earlier, people are repeating what they have been told, and it's easy to be a mindless, obedient robot when you haven't watched the game and been able to assess your own decision. If you're a TikTok basketball player, as LeBron fans are coming to be known, if you combine what you're being shown on social media with what La Media is telling you, sure, you can come to an incorrect conclusion. I just wish people would take the time to actually break down the whole thing and see if he passes the eye test.
Well said. Robin, what's your take on what Uncommon Sense and AOH had to say? Do you think that Tim Duncan is a greater basketball player than LeBron James?
Absolutely. It's not even a question, man. I've done a video on this. Listen, any real basketball fan, I'm talking about a true basketball fan, not a LeBron James fan. If you're an honest basketball fan, you look yourself in the mirror, you carry yourself with some integrity, you value these kinds of things, right? Then there's no way that you can put LeBron James above Tim Duncan. When I talk on my channels about being worthy of these things, to me, LeBron James is not worthy to be above a Tim Duncan. When we think about Tim Duncan's career, he's literally the antithesis of LeBron James. When people talk about the lack of consistency, my man Uncommon Sense talking about that. We think about that for LeBron James, right? Those are the facts about LeBron James. That's the complete opposite of Tim Duncan. He's the epitome of consistency on both ends of the court, right? When we think about LeBron James and we think about the lack of intangibles for LeBron James, that's the complete opposite of Tim Duncan. When you think about leadership, does anybody equate LeBron James to have greater leadership skills than Tim Duncan? Absolutely not. I've never seen Tim Duncan walk off the court early. I've never seen him do these things. I've never seen or heard Tim Duncan tell us, the fans, that he has to activate playoff mode all of a sudden now. He's activating playoff mode. The Spurs are going deep now. This is what's going on. I've never heard him say these things. So if we think about that, Tim Duncan is the opposite of LeBron James. If we think about those very intangibles that we're always talking about on a lot of our channels, that you don't hear the mainstream media, they never talk about the intangibles with these players. All they ever highlight are the stats. So if you looked at the stats and you didn't talk about anything else, then yeah, you might say, what the hell is this guy talking about? LeBron James is way superior to Tim Duncan. He has 4 MVPs. He scored all these points, blah, 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 blah. He's at all the all-star games and all this nonsense, right? But what does LeBron James lack over a Tim Duncan? We just talked about the consistency, right? Some of those things, the intangibles. LeBron James lacks the intangibles, like leadership. But also, what do they talk about LeBron James, right? One of the narratives, LeBron James makes the players around him better. Once again, that's the complete opposite of Tim Duncan, because Tim Duncan actually does do that. It's a narrative for LeBron James. It's not a narrative for someone like a Tim Duncan, the guys like Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. These guys are great in of themselves, absolutely, but they're greater with Tim Duncan. When we think about the Kyrie Irvings, the Kevin Loves, the Chris Boshes, the Dwayne Wades, the Ray Allens, they're not better with LeBron James. They're not greater with LeBron James. None of these players are better with LeBron James. What they have to do is what they always have done, but they're supposed to do it the same consistent way, even though they're playing in the system. So when we think about Tim Duncan, there's no way you could put LeBron James above a Tim Duncan when Tim Duncan has all these other things. We just talked about earlier, you guys said they say he's robbed for the Defensive Player of the Year award. You guys tell me right now, who the hell believes Tim Duncan was not robbed more than LeBron James if anyone deserved a Defensive Player of the Year award? You're gonna tell me Tim Duncan didn't deserve one more than LeBron James? You're gonna tell me maybe Scottie Pippen didn't deserve one more than LeBron James? Maybe Kobe Bryant was robbed of a Defensive Player of the Year award. You're gonna tell me LeBron James was robbed 1 year in 21 seasons? Get the hell out of here.
We got more super chats that have come in. Uncommon Sense. This wasn't addressed to anybody, so if you'd like to address it, they say drama therapy. Love you guys. I wish everyone would see how much of a narcissist LeBron is. He is not a role model for our kids.
Thank you.
What do you have to say about that? Uncommon Sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's for all the fanboys who get in the comments and talk about how much of a role model he is. I would argue just what he does on the court makes him not a good role model. Just the fact that he does it on the court, the flopping thing, to me, what you are telling everyone is cheating the game is okay. And one of the things I said that I've discovered recently, going back and watching some of it, is flopping is something he does all the time. It doesn't matter if he's winning or losing or has the advantage or disadvantage. He is always doing it. And, and then to come back and all you fanboys who are fans of LeBron James, I know that you know this. Like, he flops and then he's lied about it several times, on camera, just outright lied about it. I'm thinking, like, there is something wrong with a guy who would do that. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I agree with that super chat.
All right. Cameron Johnson, super chats again. And well, since he led with AOH, if you want to respond to this. Kobe, MJ, Tim Duncan, T-Mac were better than LeBron. Those players were consistent. The eye test proves it. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I'll have to agree with you. It's not really a challenging comment to come back on. Hoop God and Phenomenal Fitness just mentioned the consistency. What's one of the arguments that people use to try and defend LeBron James? And it's important to point out that when people defend LeBron James, they aren't actually addressing what you've presented in front of them. They're not saying, well, how do you explain this behavior that you're seeing right now? They backpedal to say, oh, well, Jordan wasn't perfect. Or if we're talking about the sweeps, I saw someone in the chats wanted to talk about that Jordan has also been swept. Well, is there a difference? Did you really think about this, or did you hear Nick Wright say that Jordan has also been swept? Because it's not comparable on any level. And you're also leaving out how many times LeBron was gentleman swept. So Michael Jordan comes in 84-85. He gets swept in the first round against who would go on to be the eventual champions, Celtics, 8 seed versus 1 seed in 86. And it happens again in 87. So you're talking about the very beginning of Michael Jordan's career, where you can legitimately say he doesn't have help. One of those years, he had barely come back from a broken foot, not a fake injury, an actual injury that he had to argue to get back out on the court, not have the media pretend that he really did have a problem. And then that's the end. That's the end. He didn't get swept later when he was established as a player, not when he had the experience, not when he had teammates that he had learned to play with. It's just not comparable. And yet you will see this nugget of information provided to you by La Media, and you'll run with it. Tell me how that's comparable to LeBron James getting swept in his 7th season in the league, in the finals on the biggest stage. Not to mention that those 2 Celtic sweeps were 5-game series, and the rules changed for the first round to become a 7-game series in LeBron's era.
Yep. Full Venom Jacket. Just to remind everybody again, please say who you're super chatting. But Robin, since Uncommon Sense and AOH have done it, and this doesn't address anybody, it says LeBron's so gross with his blaming off his team, throwing coaches under the bus, his horrible body language towards his team when things get tough is what I hate the most. Well, I guess Fear the Fro, maybe that's for AOH, but I don't know. The biogenesis, but what do you have to say about that, Robin, about that take?
Yeah, that goes to the intangibles that we're always alluding to. This is why you're not worthy of it. I made that reference in some of my videos about pulling Excalibur out of the stone. And now all the greatest knights came around the land. It didn't matter how fancy their armor was, how many, people they vanquished and stuff. None of that stuff mattered. You had to be worthy to pull the sword from the stone. And for LeBron James, the actions, they talk about the body language in that chat. That's a big problem for LeBron James. His body languages, like you said, it's kind of disgusting. It's not manly when we talk about these things. And this is another thing when we talk about Tim Duncan. You've never heard Tim Duncan ever come on a stage or anywhere and say, hey, I want my respect. You're going to give me my damn respect. You never heard Tim Duncan say something like that nonsense. Why is that? Because Tim Duncan never had to ask for those things because of the way that he carried himself. I can't stress this enough, man. When people talk about body language and you're saying these kinds of things, this is what we're alluding to, the integrity and the honor, the class that the guys that I grew up watching, they carried themselves with that professionally. I told you, I don't know these guys personally, but professionally, these guys were just that. They were true pros, man.
Yep. Adidas, again, has not said who he was actually super chatting. I know that Hoop God is not monetized, so, but I'll let him answer it since you're saying it. Addressing him. Hoop God, you're right about Marc Gasol, but I was saying on that Heat team, Shane Battier played the tough players and people lie that James did. What do you have to say about that, Hoop God?
Wait, he said, say that again. He said it was Shane Battier who was getting the tougher assignments.
Yeah, Shane Battier played the tough players, and people lie that James did.
Oh yeah, no, that's absolutely facts. The thing is, you have to go back now to give him a little bit of credit. Yeah, LeBron did play good defense. I'll give him that to a certain extent. But for the most part, he was not guarding the other team's best players because again, he can only play one way, the LeBron system. And we know how he operates at the top of the key. So he's not going to have the energy on defense to get out there and scrap like that, like you would say a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, because they could discipline themselves. Now, Shane Battier guarding those tougher assignments, yes, because essentially that was his role, a 3-and-D guy. And like I said, with Marc Gasol, even if you guys go back and look, before Gasol, the year before, I think before he got to the Grizzlies, I think they were out of the top 10 in defensive efficiency. Now, the reason I'm saying that, the Miami Heat, before LeBron came there, this is just D Wade and the rest of those guys, they were 5th. LeBron only moved them up 1 rank to 4th. Marc Gasol took those guys from not even being top 10 to right at one of the second. They were second in defensive efficiency and defensive rating the year he won the Defensive Player of the Year. And like I said earlier, when he was on the floor, teams were not even getting 90 points. When LeBron was on the floor, they were clearing 90 points. There were some teams getting 100 points. So no, he did not get robbed. That's nothing but a media narrative, and they used that because he got all defensive first team. Gasol got all defensive second team. But when you use context, Gasol was not going to beat out Tim Duncan at that time because Tim Duncan made all defensive first team as a center, which was Marc Gasol's position. So that's why, and that's just a part of it. Like I said, I could go into detail, but I don't want to take up too much time from the other guys. But thank you for that part, Dart.
Absolutely. What's your take on, do you think that Tim Duncan is greater than LeBron James?
I absolutely think Tim Duncan, again, let me preface my statement by saying this. Basketball is a team game. You do have individual great players, but you have to be able to implement yourself into the team concept to show off your greatness. And the reason I'm saying that is because with Tim Duncan's selfless approach to the game, I always say this, like I hear some of these guys, they try to argue me up and down, oh, he got carried and all this. I'm like, first and foremost, he was always the defensive anchor on every one of those championship teams. Now, in 2003, which is my favorite all-time run for him, that was better than any LeBron James playoff period because he was the offense. He set the tone on offense and defense, the intangibles, the leadership, all of that. Because I know a lot of these guys, they love those advanced numbers, which that's fine. And I always tell them, well, Tim Duncan got the highest win shares in a single playoff run. They don't want to hear that. See, when it doesn't favor their king, quote, so to speak, they'll try to minimize it. But I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Because Tim Duncan showed you right there that he could go out there and get it done with the great David Robinson, all due respect to him, 8 points per game in that finals run. Tim Duncan set a record for 5 blocks per game in that finals. Okay, he closed them out in a near quadruple double. I think he was either 1 assist or maybe 1 steal from completing that in that closeout game. Right now, Tim Duncan has made All NBA first team 8 times, All Defensive first team 8 times simultaneously. LeBron has only done that 5 times because he only made All Defensive first team 5 times. I know he got all the other All NBA outfit. That's cool, but like I tell people, there's an offensive component, there's a defensive component. And Tim Duncan, like LeBron clears him in points. I'm like, okay, cool. Tim Duncan clears him in defense because defense does what? Win championships, which is why he beat LeBron down 2 out of the 1 times and should have been 3 times in the NBA Finals. But see, those things they won't talk about because again, it's the narrative for LeBron James. But when I know when I'm talking to somebody who knows basketball and we bring these topics up and I tell them, when you're looking at just a basketball player, right? I would take Tim Duncan 7 days out of the week and twice on Sundays because he's going to bring all the unselfish things. Hey, you need somebody to go out there and get you 20 rebounds, he'll do it. Hey, you need somebody to get you 25 points, he'll do it. You need somebody to get you 5 blocks and 3, he will do it. Like, what do you need? I will get it done. That's the guy I want on my team. I don't want the guy who wants to put up all the nice numbers, and then when it's in a closeout time, when it's time to shut the door on another team, now he wants to pass the ball. Well, no, you haven't got me in a rhythm. You haven't got me in a flow. So how can I even find my rhythm when you've been dominating the basketball? No, Tim Duncan was the complete opposite. He was a team player. I mean, if he had the hot hand, yeah, he would go out there and get the job done. But if Kawhi Leonard is emerging, hey, Kawhi, go ahead. You got the hot hand? We're gonna play through you, Tony Parker. You got the hot hand, we're gonna play through you. Manu, you got the hot hand, circa 2005. We'll play through you. But one thing about Tim Duncan, he was consistent on the defensive side. And that reminds me of, like, I would say he's like the modern day version of a Bill Russell to a certain extent. But yes, I would take Tim Duncan any day of the week. I don't care about 3-point, and I don't care about none of that. I want to know, are you going to bring those intangibles? Are you going to set those tough screens? Are you going to get back on defense? Are you going to make the hockey assist? Those type of things. I want that on my team. So that's my take on that.
AOH has been super chatted again from Thanos Snap Feminism.
Hey, I recognize that name. I appreciate your activity on my channel.
He says, to Hoop God's statement, Battier had to teach LeBron how to read a zone defense after 2011. Battier revealed this in an interview. On a sidebar, I just want to say something about it. But LeBron James is a basketball savant, apparently. Anyway, what do you have to say about that? Anyway,
Yeah, geez, I have a lot to say about that. I just finished a video about 2011 finals and the collusion. They called it the decision. I've renamed it the collusion, as brought to you by ESPN, who was fully on board with this disgusting downfall of the NBA. And, all I can tell you is LeBron James was embarrassing. You watch that shit, and it's like, where are you people coming from? If it isn't for never-ending alley-oops from Dwayne Wade, I'm not sure LeBron's even getting the points that he was getting. But when in history, how many times? I mean, it has to have happened, but how often is LeBron James taking on the toughest defensive assignment, or even the second toughest defensive assignment? And this isn't limited to whether or not the position is the same position. You do what you have to do to win. People have switched over and guarded who they needed to guard in order to help the team. That just doesn't happen with LeBron. But specifically regarding Shane Battier and these brainwashed LeBron fans who repeat that LeBron had no help, those teams in Miami were so deep that people like Shane Battier don't even come up in the conversation. And you can't tell me Shane Battier wasn't an asset. I mean, that guy was a great player. He brought the veteran experience, and he obviously brought the defensive discipline. And you could say that for quite a few people on those teams. The fact that in the 2013 team, Ray Allen, who had championship experience coming from the Celtics, who was the current, at the time, best three-point shooter in the league, is number 4? Number 4? What the hell? He doesn't even get mentioned in the top 3 of the team. I mean, that's just stupid stacking of teams. It's absurd. And where's LeBron in it? He's enjoying time off on the perimeter until he feels like running in for a dunk and whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, yeah. Shane Battier was a great player, yeah, and he gets just pushed to the side. I totally agree with that.
You guys watch when I show, everybody thinks that this LeBron's game is something recent. I interestingly show it's the same shit even back then. The dude's just highlight reel is him alone getting dunks thanks to the work of his teammates. Listen, I understand that sounds incredibly biased. It's not like LeBron James hasn't made any perimeter shots or hasn't done anything great, but the bulk of his career is that. I'm not going to listen, if the highest jumper ever and the best dunker ever was coming on the floor, you say, yeah, wow, what an athlete. Do you crown that person the GOAT? No.
Yeah. Gary is super chatted. We'll do Uncommon Sense because he was led with first in the statement. 3 of my favorites together: Uncommon Sense, AOH, and Sports and Fitness Rants. Keep this energy, guys, and I will continue to support. Duncan is definitely over LeBron. That's not a debate. Why do you guys think, or who do you, excuse me, not why, who do you guys think is the second greatest player? Uncommon Sense, what do you have to say about that?
honestly, if you watch my channel, you know that I always say like my number one is constant. 2, through 5 is it kind of changes because I feel like I can think of reason to put a lot of guys up there, but between Kareem, between Kobe, between Bird and Magic, Russell, it just kind of changes because, like I said, I think I refer pretty heavily on the eye test, and all, which is also why, even though I've researched the older players, I don't like to comment too much because I feel like if you weren't there to see it for yourself, that is a totally different experience than, which is why I understand when a lot of older people, have Russell and some of those guys as their GOAT. I'm like, I wasn't there to see those things in person and experience that, because that's a different thing than reading stats. That's a different thing than looking at some highlights, and trying to gather information on the player. And kind of the same thing as what I tell the younger generation about Michael Jordan. If you did not live through that era, there is nothing I can tell you. There is no highlight you can watch to really get a sense of how it felt back then. So, to make a long story short, is my 2 through 5 kind of changes, and I can think of reasons to put a lot of different players in that number 2 slot. I can tell you who is not. It's not LeBron James. That's a definite.
And the thing, when Tim Duncan or a Michael Jordan are asked a question like that, even if in their minds they're saying, yeah, I'm the best, they have the sense to acknowledge exactly what Uncommon just said. You weren't there. You don't know. You didn't play against him. Anything could have happened. And it's changed so drastically that people just don't have any respect for the past or the fact that you're talking about things that can't ever be proven. And it's not just LeBron James, but I feel like he paved the way for these guys who say ridiculous things. Like, one example was Ja Morant saying he would have smoked Jordan. It's like, you haven't done a damn thing. I mean, you haven't done a damn thing. Who are you to talk? You can jump. The only thing you've shown us is that you can jump. Shut up.
And
where's your dad?
And wave guns on social media.
You went crazy.
But no, absolutely. My take real fast on the Tim Duncan versus LeBron James is that I do think it's closer than Michael Jordan versus everybody else. I have a kind of like what Uncommon Sense is saying. Sometimes I feel that Tim Duncan is a lot better than LeBron, and then I think, well, what about all the longevity stuff? But I have to say that for me, my personal bias leans toward Tim Duncan because he was my favorite basketball player growing up outside of Michael Jordan as a kid. So, and I think that there's a real argument. I don't. It's not just my bias. There is a real argument that he is. You can argue that Tim Duncan's the GOAT. He's done a lot of great things. It's been mentioned over the time. He's the most efficient winner of all time in the regular season. In the playoffs as well. He's had 19 seasons of having 50 plus wins throughout his career. That's a record as well, let alone just his individual statistics. And people will take a dump on him because he scored 19 points per game for a career in the what is it called, the dead ball era for the most part, until he was in his mid 30s when it started speeding up. I never really understood all the hate for that. And then he just absolutely dominated the league. And I think AOH brought it up. He would cook Shaq on offense. He couldn't stop him on defense, but he would cook Shaq on offense all the time because he could do the moves, he could get the hook shots, he can do the post moves, and he just got space and can score on Shaq. So it was just something that, especially when during the David Robinson years, that Shaq nobody wanted anything to do with Tim Duncan because he was arguably the best in the league at the time. And he had more MVPs than Kobe, and more MVPs than Shaq, amongst a lot of other players during the time that he played in, especially when he was in his prime in the 2000s. So if I had to say who I think is greater, I think it's Tim Duncan. But in regard to the LeBron James, or excuse me, the Michael Jordan to everybody else, just to bring him into it. I don't think anyone's close to Michael Jordan personally, but to move forward, do any of you want to talk about something before we start letting callers call in
Hey,
that
hey,
hasn't been brought up?
hey,
Uh,
Dart, can I respond to a point that you and AOH made before you move on to that part?
Sure.
So AOH, what you were saying about when Michael Jordan and Tim Duncan are asked, like about like being called the greatest power forward or being called the best player of all time. The thing is, you got to think mentally. Yeah, you know all those guys, Magic, Bird. If you ask any of them, yeah, they're gonna think they're the best, but they don't say that because it's called diplomacy. Having decorum and respect for your elders, and you only learn that when you are raised in the home with a patriarchal figure that administers that. He administers that to you. Prime example: me as a young boy going to the barbershop, right? I would hear how all the elder guys would like interact with one another, but I would say like the guys who are maybe like 2 or 3 years older than me, like when they come in the barbershop, yes sir, no sir, just things of that nature. And Tim Duncan was raised with a father figure in the home. So was Michael Jordan. And necessarily doesn't have to be a father, but I would say a grandfather or uncle or just an older sibling who was raised the right way. That's why they don't say that publicly. I mean, of course you think, internally you're gonna believe you're the best. You would have never got to that level if you didn't. But there's a certain level of having respect for the people who came before you that you always pay it forward to them. And then you let the generation after you tell you how great you were, or your peers per se. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Walter Payton said it. When you're a good player, you have to tell everybody how good you are. That reminds me of LeBron James. But when you're a great player, your peers and your contemporaries will tell you how great you are. And that's what puts me in mind of Jordan, Magic, Bird, Tim Duncan, Hakeem, Shaq, all those guys, Kobe. And Dart, what you were saying about the ones who try to dump on his 19 points per game, Dart, that is the TikTok skinny jeans generation, okay? They never played organized basketball, but yet they will try to tell you about a sport that they've never went out there and played. And I tell them that all the time. How many organized games have you played? What are you? Just answer the question. Okay, cool. You never played organized basketball. Ain't nothing you're going to tell me about a Tim Duncan or a Bill Russell or any of those other guys you want to label as a plumber, all because they're not putting up 45 points per game like they're doing in this defensive era. Thank you for that.
Well said. I think that was good cherry on top. Do any of you want to talk about anything else before we start letting callers on?
Well,
Yeah,
I want to.
Oh,
I have a question before I forget, because we'll tune off before I remember. Robin, please email me. Trying to get hold of you. And also, are you a sports trainer? Are you are you like fitness guy on a pro level, or are you just a fitness fan?
No, I don't do anything professionally. I was a CrossFit coach, a level 1 CrossFit coach for years. But I don't have like any professional affiliation, man. Nah.
I got a question for you. We'll take it offline. It's not appropriate to this episode,
Right.
But get a hold of me.
Yes, definitely.
In common sense, you're saying something?
Yeah, I just had a question, and maybe I'm mistaken, but if anybody can remember, like I said, it's kind of going back to Tim Duncan, but I would say Tim Duncan and all the greats, to me, everyone except LeBron James, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't recall a game where I saw LeBron affected by his hustle if his shot wasn't falling. Like, I've never seen LeBron just affect the game without being able to score. It's like if he's scoring, then everything else, he kind of gets motivated in other ways. But if he's not scoring, he just falls by the wayside and looks like a lost puppy out there. And I'm just trying to think of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of a game where LeBron James finds other ways to change the outcome of the game. I'm going to play with most superstars.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and tell you what LeBron fans are going to say. They're going to talk about the chase down block. The thing is that that's an anomaly. It's a one-off, but it's presented as though it's standard.
And Kobe started that, by the way.
I just before all you LeBroners start saying that in the side column, that does not define LeBron's behavior defensively. It's what you're shown repeatedly.
Yeah, you guys are around the money, man. Like, I always talk about that 96 NBA Finals with Michael Jordan as an example because you'll often hear the LeBron James fans. I've heard many times them tell us or tell me that Michael Jordan choked in the 96 Finals. But I'm pretty sure the Bulls won that finals, but somehow he choked. And why do they say he choked? Because he didn't average 30-some points a game on 50-something% shooting. But like my man Uncommon Sense was saying, he did other things to affect that series, and he still led the team in scoring. That was always there, right? But he did other things, like what he do? He put the pressure on Gary Payton when Ron Harper went down with the knee injury, so he relied on his defense. Michael Jordan could always rely and lean on his defense, whether it was the series against New York Knicks in '92. I don't know if it was either Game 5 or Game 6, whichever game it was. But Michael Jordan wasn't hitting the shot, but he did other things. There were games where Michael Jordan led the team in rebounding because he was the utility man for the Bulls, man. So that's absolutely on the money, man. Just because Michael Jordan wasn't hitting the shots per se or, didn't have the high percentage, he found other ways to impact the game always. Same thing with the Tim Duncan, man. Tim Duncan was that anchor on defense. Dar, you said something earlier about LeBron James having maybe the longevity over Tim Duncan. I don't buy that. Tim Duncan has the longevity over LeBron James, hands down, man. This man was making all defensive teams from the minute he stepped into the NBA to essentially almost the last years that he played in the NBA. That's called consistency. That's called longevity. My man, Hoop God, you mentioned Tim Duncan, the Spurs, and all you guys mentioned these guys winning in all these different eras. That's called consistency. The 50-win seasons that Tim Duncan was the anchor to the Spurs, that's called longevity. That's called consistency, man. So I think that Tim Duncan has the longevity over a LeBron James.
I got to hop on that, Robin. You're spot on because Duncan was the anchor. And, he had to keep doing it over and over and over again. And we're talking about age 38. Didn't he beat LeBron at age 38? So
dismantled him at 38.
Dismantled him at 38. So he continued to play even after that. But here's the thing.
And LeBron was in his prime. LeBron was 28, 29.
Yes, he was. Thank you for that. Yes, he was.
Which is kind of what I'm trying to get to is that, yes, LeBron is still playing at 38. He's only the anchor via the media. You watch the games, he is just an accessory out there who decides to participate when D'Lo decides to wait for his fucking old ass to get down the court and bounce past him a wide open dunk. Oh God, look what LeBron's doing at 38. Fuck.
Hey, so I want to chime in on what Sports Fitness Rants, AOH, and what Uncommon said about LeBron not showing that those other things when his shot wasn't falling, because this is something that all of my coaches taught me from Pee Wee to junior high to high school. All of them. They didn't say it verbatim, but it was in the same ballpark. You can't control if your shot is going in, because you're just going to go through those slumps. But what you can control is your effort. You can control giving that extra bit of effort to get a defensive rebound, to either box out somebody, to battle for those 50-50 balls, to dive on the floor, to close out on the shot and contest, getting back on defense, setting a nice screen, giving up a good shot for a better shot. You can control all those aspects when your shot is not falling. And no, I've never seen a series where if his offensive game was not like on all cylinders, him going out there doing those other little things. That's why I always tell that skinny jeans era, you put Larry Bird on that 2011 Miami Heat team, they will win that game, because you have the biggest, I'm saying LeBron James as far as just his stature. You're the biggest guy on the court. Okay, granted, they're playing a high school zone. You can't shoot. That ain't going to stop you from playing defense. If Dirk is cooking, go out there and stop Dirk. Dirk shot 41% from the field. With all due respect to Dirk, he won and earned that. But LeBron James, you're stating your claim as the GOAT. You're supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. Why didn't you say, hey, CB, I got it. Watch out. Let me go get Dirk. Why aren't you down there battling with Tyson Chandler? I mean, clearly you ain't got no offensive game going, but yet he did not display any of those intangibles. Going into the 2014 finals, I can tell you right now, there were 3 times Kawhi Leonard literally just got an offensive rebound on LeBron's watch, and he's just standing there. Because, again, they exposed him. Greg Popovich said, back off of him, let him shoot. And when he couldn't do that, and they got him out, and they played the psychological games with LeBron. If you go look at all the teams that have beat him, go back to the Orlando Magic. They were inviting him to shoot those shots because they knew this guy can only play one way, get downhill. And if you go back and watch that Orlando Magic series, that's another prime example. Like the comment said, the first 2 games only came down. It was a 1 point game. I think game 3 and game 4 were 2-point games. So I'm saying that to say this. So LeBron, you telling me you couldn't go out there and show effort and get 3 more offensive rebounds, or just out battle Dwight Howard for a defensive rebound to get your team an extra possession like LeBron? You can't go out there and set a screen to get Big Z an open shot, or to get Mo Williams on a backdoor cut to the goal. I mean, come on, man. You're supposed to be you're the MVP. Like, okay, cool. Your offensive game ain't going. There are other things you can do. And just like Sports and Fitness Rand said about Michael Jordan in the 96 finals. Yes, thank you for bringing it up. It's a prime example, because that's my go-to. When Ron Harper went down, Michael Jordan played lockdown defense on Gary Payton. And how do you stop a great offensive team if they have a great point guard? You cut off the head of the snake. Because if the point guard cannot facilitate the offense and get it into the other guys, that's gonna offset everybody else on that team. That's gonna knock their rhythm off and their timing. Because now he's getting hassled by a guy who's a phenomenal defender and ultimately led to what? A championship. So yeah, that is one thing I can honestly say. I've never seen him do that. But thank you for bringing that up on comment, because that was a great point.
Hoops God just said something that everybody needs to digest for a while, because you can't play a mental game against an actual GOAT. That doesn't work. If the other guy is an actual GOAT, imagine a coach. Did anyone ever say, "Oh, we're gonna mess with Michael Jordan's mind and give him an open shot"? Who said that ever?
Absolutely. Real fast, we got another super chat coming in, and I want to apologize because I stepped away a couple times, and I wanted to make sure that I caught this. If I missed anybody else's, I deeply apologize. I am a person. I have to use the bathroom on occasion. Maybe I have an enlarged prostate. I don't know, but either way,
You diagnosed
You old man.
self-diagnosed.
Hey, Dart, put some sea salt in your water, bro. It'll help you retain it. Put some sea salt in your water.
I'm about to piss in my beer bottle here.
That's funny, man.
But for we are multi-streaming across all of the platforms here. We have a total of 533 people watching as of right now, and the chat is going wild. So I made sure to go and look back for the super chat, which I caught a while back. Retro Heat Check has super chatted. Robin, Sports and Fitness Rants, I've subbed to you all. Keep standing up for the real. Tim Duncan is the GOAT power forward in NBA history. Pure fundamentals and skill. What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely, man. Shout out to my man, Retro Heat Check, man. Everybody should check his channel out, man. Much respect to him. But once again, when we talk about Tim Duncan, and his nickname is what? The big fundamental, right? He said pure fundamentals. Once again, that's the antithesis of LeBron James. LeBron James is the big fumble. He's the big stumble and bumble. That's LeBron James. He's not the big anything. So when you hear people talk about LeBron James, he's never been known for his quote-unquote fundamentals, his quote-unquote footwork, his skills, things of that nature. He's been known for what? All this other nonsense, his physicality. But Tim Duncan has a fundamental game, man. Absolutely. When you mention Tim Duncan being the GOAT power forward, most people consider Tim Duncan the greatest power forward of all time. That's pretty much right, a no-brainer. But when you think about LeBron James, as far as it relates to small forwards, there are a lot of people who believe Larry Bird is greater than LeBron James. I happen to be one of those same people. I actually have Dr. J above LeBron James. Not many people have Dr. J above LeBron James, but I actually do. So when we talk about the small forward position, there's an argument there for LeBron James, man. There's really no argument for Tim Duncan, man. So shout out to my man, Retro Heat Check. Thank you.
Real fast before I give my take about what LeBron James doesn't do, Marvin Strong says we need Scap Attack and Uncut Hoops on here next time for sure. So all of you, there's 533 of you watching. Let these guys know, because I've asked these gentlemen. I've known Robin for a while now, for about a year, and he's come on the live stream. But my recent friends here of Uncommon Sense and AOH, I want to make the greatest Michael Jordan fan-centric live stream on the internet. I think we have it already, but let's make it by far the best. So let them know that you want them on the show, and have them email me, and we'll make it happen, because I want to make the best thing in the world. I think we already have it, but let's make it better. Anyway, for me with LeBron James, what does he do? You're talking about the effort on Common Sense and everybody else that had talked about this stuff. I think he's virtually a one-trick pony. I mean, he goes and he drives he kicks when he drives if he's not going to finish it, and he's developed a 3-point shot over the last few years. Defense, he's just virtually given up on it.
He was wait a minute. He was the bottom of the league the previous 2 years. This year is an improvement, but
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that he's been shooting it more often with some confidence. This year, I think he's at the top of the league, or at least he was for a certain time.
with no shot contention. No.
I'm not saying he's a great 3-point shooter. That's never come out of my mouth. I'm saying that that's what he does now, is that he drives, he kicks if he doesn't have a wide open dunk, because he's definitely not going to meet somebody at the rim. I mean, he did it with Paul George earlier this year, which was hilarious. And then he shoots a 3-point shot. He's going to do 3 things. And on defense, like you said, with the effort and totality, it's not there, man. And he barely even drives to the rim at this point. He sits on the outside, does that little look down at the ground, step back, and then, the biggest tell in the world for a 3-point shot. But yeah, I think he's virtually a one-trick pony.
Hey, Dark, if you able to break that down like you did, that simple, what do you think those high IQ teams are doing when they're preparing for LeBron in the playoffs?
Well, LeBron said that people can't even flip plays in their head. So, but these are the best guys in the world. I don't know. That's something that I almost debated about asking all of you guys to change the subject to talk about that live stream or that podcast, because
it's too much.
He said the most ludicrous things, in my opinion. But yeah, that's a sidebar. But just giving credit to say that these guys are the best coaches, the best scouts, the best players in the world. What would they do to be able to stop LeBron James? I mean, to give him credit, I would think that people understand these tells, understand, what he does. But I mean, to give him credit, he's one of the greatest of all time. So he's just able to do it. Not enough to win a lot in respect. I mean, he has won a lot compared to the rest of NBA history in general, but for GOAT status, no, he hasn't. But yeah, what they definitely, in my opinion, know what he's going to do. If that's your real question, yeah, they know what he's going to do.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is because when Isaiah Thomas said this, I always try to give credit to the people out here say something that I always put in my repertoire. But he was saying it about the Golden State Warriors. He said they play perfect randomness, meaning they're not predictable. Like, people think, just on the surface, this is a 3-point shooting team. No, they're not. They do more than shoot the 3. The 3 ball just so happens to stand out because they do it with such efficiency. But the Golden State Warriors actually shoot mid-range. They shoot low posts. Of course, they get their collection of dunks and layups in transition or in a half-court setting, depending on what set they run. And, of course, they're great free throw shooters. So I'm saying that to say that when you look at a LeBron James, and you just pinpointed all 3 aspects of his game, he's either going to drive to the goal to dunk, or driving for ill-advised kick-out pass, or he's going to do that little step-back, look-down 3, right? So there's no 1-2 dribble pull-up like a Kobe Bryant, like a Michael Jordan, or a Dwayne Wade, or a Larry Bird. Like, he doesn't have that in his game. He when he did go to the low post, ironically, he had his most success. But what did he do when he went back to Cleveland? Same thing you just said. Operating at the top of the key, trying to freight train down, get downhill, and then if he does have a clear lane, he'll go for the layup. And if he misses, he wants to flop and look for the ref to bail him out, or he wants to make a ill-advised long pass that will get easily picked off. Like, there's so many games I watched against Orlando, Golden State, and the Spurs. They were ready for him. Like, they would have the lane open, basically baiting him like a Venus flytrap. Come on in here, big fella. And as soon as he drove the lane, they collapsed. He will make that ill-advised kick-out pass, and either Kawhi or Kevin Durant, Iguodala, or whatever team he was playing, the guy that was his defensive assignment on the help side will intercept that pass and go down there and score off his turnovers. Thank you for that, Dark.
Absolutely. Does anyone else want to talk about something before we let a couple callers on? We're getting to the general 2-hour-ish mark to cut it off, but does anyone want to talk about anything before we let a lucky caller on or two?
Just a quick unabashed plug to myself, because I see some people talk about 2011. I'm going to release it I think in respect to today's stream, I'm going to wait until tomorrow, but you'll probably be fairly satisfied because I was not nice and it's pretty bad. So 2011, the decision, LeBron's performance coming out tomorrow.
All right.
I just want to for any of you fanboys checking out this stream, because I know you're in there. Just to reiterate, for the people who love to talk about Michael Jordan didn't beat anyone till they got old, the 2011 finals, the Dallas Mavericks was the second oldest team to win a championship. Just some good trivia for you guys.
Hey, okay.
How old was the Spurs?
To that point, I'm watching the footage from it, and I'm like, how is LeBron James not taking 38-year-old 6'4" Jason Kidd to the hole constantly or shooting over the top of him? Jason Kidd, 38, 6'4", is guarding LeBron James. Does anyone even remember that?
Oh yeah,
I do.
Shit.
Hey, no. Hey, AOH, go check the sequences that he had JJ Barea in the post and couldn't score on him.
It's all coming.
So Savage Basketball and Two Raw were mentioned. I know so that's somebody I want to reach out to. I've reached out to Scap Attack. He hadn't answered me in the email yet, but like I was saying, reach out to him. But I don't remember who I saw, but Savage Basketball, I think I saw a comment. I haven't reached out to him yet, but he said he was down. I don't know. Do you all on the panel know who he is?
Who?
No, I'm not
Yeah,
familiar.
Savage
I know who
Basketball
he is.
Facts?
Yeah,
I'll check
he's at like 5 channels, my man, Savage Basketball Facts, man. He's the true antagonizer of the LeBron James and the media, you know what I'm saying, the fan club, man. So he's had to create at least like 4 or 5 different channels because they keep going after my man, Savage Basketball Facts. I don't know if he could come on here because he's too savage, my man. You know what I'm saying? He's official.
Yeah.
Same thing with my man, Too Raw.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's that level of yeah, I totally get you. But
They're official though.
Oh yeah. Hey Dart, I just wanted real quick. Hey, I forgot. Hey Dart, I mean not Dart, my bad. Sports and Fitness Rants. Dreamers Pro shouted you out. I forgot which song. I got to go back and find it because I screen recorded it. But one of his takes, I think, with that whole "we done with the '90s" crap, like he made some good points. And Dart, I was gonna say, if you're interested, I can reach out to Dreamers Pro because he makes great content as well.
yeah, like I said, man, I want this, and like I said, I think it's already there. But just to the point of, if we get these other guys on and we have this united front in general, who can stop us? We got it all in one place. But yeah, reach out to him, man. And then Leo's talking about Too Raw for Sports, but just any of these guys, have this be a place where we could all talk together and the people get to see us collaborate with each other. You know what I'm saying? And this channel is a statement. Michael Jordan fans are the best because these LeBron James fans that, this has been talked about a million times. I don't really have to lay this out. It's hilarious how some people go and just think that greatness is hanging out, just staying. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not being really articulate or eloquent here, but it's a statement, man. Michael Jordan fans are the best, and everyone should be able to come on this and be able to say their points. And I think right now we even have the greatest panel in the world in respect to Michael Jordan fandom. But that's just my personal opinion. I might be a little biased, but anyway.
Just a reminder that what LeBron's doing now isn't new. It was from the very beginning. Like the fact that he quit on his team and lost in the playoffs, and instead of being absolutely dismantled for that, was treated to an hour-long special about where he was going to go next. Should tell you. I mean, that immediately following failure.
Yeah.
But and also in that press conference right after he loses, he says, people are spoiled by LeBron James basketball. I've had like maybe 3 bad games in my 7-year career. What a fucking piece of trash. He said that after he lost.
Yep.
He said this back then. And then he just continued. Listen, the only thing that's changed is that the media and society have lowered themselves to match LeBron James, continuously going lower and lower in order to accept shit performances and shit behavior.
Indeed.
Greatness is achieved through victories, not longevity and not appearances. Greatness will always be achieved through victory.
I have a question for you guys regarding longevity. So, you know, I'm not physically intimidating, but I do have some durability. I still have this energy and I keep playing. I've been playing at the local gym longer than anyone else by far. And I've now accumulated the most points of anyone who has ever played there. Am I the best player who's ever played at that place?
You need a statue
Hey, by
for
LeBron.
Yes
for
or
every
no?
team for every team you played on.
Yeah.
You need a statue there just because. Just because
Hey,
you have
AOH.
longevity.
AOH,
like that.
hey, by the
I want
LeBron
my damn
James fans'
respect.
logic, yes, you are. By their logic, yes, you are.
He said, "I want my damn respect."
Hey, I just want to say, in response to what AOH said about basically everyone has changed and lowered their standard for LeBron. For all the true basketball fans out there, this is why it is so important that you support all of these content creators, because we are the ones who are combating this foolishness that takes place every day. And it just makes me think of a quote from Tupac. I remember the interviewer asked him, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years or something?" And he said, "I'll have to change the world, because either I have to change the world or be changed by the world." And we are not going to be changed by the lowering of standards for this clown. I mean, I just, I'm last but not least, I'm gonna say this. You know, when I first discovered AOH, I enjoy the videos, but I remember it got to, I was like, man, I cannot watch this because he's exposing stuff that's worse than what I thought it was. You know how you watch a game and you're like, oh, LeBron took about 3 or 4 steps there, and then AOH slows it down and it's like 5 or 6 steps, and you're like, how is it possible? There's no way possible the ref didn't see that. There's no way possible the refs didn't see that. So to me, it's like, okay, so they're letting this guy get away with this stuff on a regular basis. Like, it's
Yeah,
so
people,
yeah.
People comment and they're like, hey, you missed this travel. I'm like, no, I don't even bother counting until 3+.
Hey, Uncommon. Why do you think Coach K, Nate McMillan, Jerry Colangelo, and Mike D'Antoni all had to go get Kobe Bryant to lead that 08 team? What you just said right there, and I mean, in concert with other things that he lacks, is the very reason why I cannot put him as the greatest player of any era. Because his fundamentals and his footwork is horrible. Like, bro, you telling me that you're supposed to be an all-time great and you customarily travel on every shot going to the goal.
Real fast before I drop the link, I'm going to give people the opportunity. If you're interested in calling in, the easiest way is to go to my channel. Michael Jordan Fans Are the Best, and it has MJFB on the end of it. So you could click the link. If you like what I have to say, I'd appreciate you subscribing to my channel and liking the live stream. But if you don't, that's fine. But for calling in, it's easiest to go to my channel and click the link. Otherwise, it'll be pushed up on here. However, you'd have to type it in. So just for the sake of ease, it's easier just to come in, and I will be dropping the link soon. We have Compare Health, Life, and Dental Insurance Solutions, my favorite handle from last stream.
I'll be right back.
And it looks like he's super chatting Uncommon Sense. He's I don't know if you're a member with Uncommon Sense as well, but I know you're a member with Robin Sports and Fitness Rants. But Uncommon Sense, great take on 2003 finals run. Forgot just how impressive that was. What do you have to say about that Uncommon Sense?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like the Spurs in general, to me, are just the definition of team basketball. You know, kind of like that's how I compare the Celtics as well. To me, like the Celtics of the Bird Celtics were like the definition of team basketball. And I put the Spurs in that same category too. I mean, even if you just go and look at some of the stats from some of those playoffs runs, to me is very balanced, and it's, you know, starts with Tim Duncan being a great leader. And, you know, I would even say like by 2007, it seemed like Tim Duncan and kind of / Tony Parker were the leaders. But yeah, I totally agree. And thanks so much for the super chat.
Absolutely. Real fast, before I drop the link, just to give people a little bit more time, because I know that there's sometimes a delay on this. Is there any last words before we drop the link? Oh, well, I got a super chat. Sorry, not to interrupt y'all. That right there made me the greatest player of all time, user 1990. He super chatted me. Man, I've watched. So if you haven't watched, and I'll plug it, watch that LeBron James podcast with JJ Redick. To me, I think it's the funniest thing I've seen in a long time. They just say the dumbest things. One of my favorite things two of my favorite things that they said, just real fast, in respect to that made me the greatest player of all time, is that LeBron James said, why don't NBA teams run the same play over and over again? You know, that is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life from somebody who's a basketball savant. You know, where he's like, just keep running it until they stop it.
Yeah.
Have you know, come on, man. I don't
heard
have to explain this for anybody who's ever dealt with any sort of tactics or strategy. They're going to adjust. So why not know that works and then use it at spots without going into all of that? But it was hilarious.
Hey, Dart, did he
got-
speak on Did he speak on defense? Because I'm just curious. Like, isn't that what all of his opponents did on the defensive side against him?
Well, he did speak on defense, but just for I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But then the second thing he said, so he said that part, and then and then that they play targeted basketball now. That nobody ever targeted weaknesses until him and JJ Redick were in the league. He's like, it's a chess game. Only the smart coaches and smart players that are in the NBA right now have started in the last, when they were playing, to target weaknesses. He said it's targeted basketball. It's a chess game. And my man Down Sports tried to explain it on his show. I called in last night about it, or 2 nights ago about it. And I don't know exactly what he said, but he tried to explain it away. In short, though, what I got out of it is that he said, oh, well, nobody ever actually identified weaknesses and exploited them. So that's the sort of content you're going to get on that in short. Damn. So it was great. It was hilarious.
Yeah, and that's why we have to be here. Like all you guys were saying, man, we have to be here to support each other. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you're talking about Dreamers Pro shouting me out, and this channel shouting each other. We try to shout each other out when we're out here making our videos and things like that, man. We're doing the live streams together because this is the nonsense. They're trying to monopolize YouTube now. Now they're trying to invade the space that was made for the people. Remember, guys, we are the people. We're the ones who make the NBA. The players make the game. Without the players, there's no game. But without the fans, there's no NBA. And we're the ones who decide who's in the greatest of all time conversations or not. It's the fans, man. But once again, these guys are trying to push us out. They're trying to push our voice out. And because look at JJ Redick. If you ever knows JJ Redick, when he speaks, no matter where he is, if he's on the podcast or if he's on ESPN First Take, whatever he's doing, he always raises his nose to everyone. He speaks down to everybody he speaks to. Whatever his point of view is, it's always the best point of view. He speaks down to everyone, whether it's Mad Dog Russo or Stephen A. Smith, or it's the people like us, the guys like Gilbert Arenas. What do they say about us, the fans? They say that we never played professionally, so we have no idea what we're talking about. This is what they say. They really believe that because we didn't play in the NBA, that we can't have an opinion, that we don't understand the game. It's laughable, man. But this is what they want these people to believe. But the good thing is, if you've noticed, a lot of these channels, they're coming up. I look at my channel on a personal level. Without everybody out there in the chat, without everybody subscribing, spreading the word, man, all of a sudden people are starting to appreciate and understand that it's not about you believing that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. It's about setting the record straight. The facts must remain the facts. That's what's always been about, man. So shout out to everybody that's been supporting all of our channels, all the independent content creators, like I said, we're small channels, some of us. I'm not big like a Dreamers Pro or an Uncut Hoops. Some of these other, a Ticket TV, for example, those guys have been around for a while, man. They're the OGs in this stuff, man. But the smaller guys like us, we must continue to stand up. And like I said, man, combat all this nonsense. The JJ Redick and the LeBron James show now.
Yeah, and I just want this really doesn't have anything to do, but hey, fanboys, I just want you to know your king is ridiculous. Like, I have never seen a LeBron James interview or anything where this guy sounds like he's saying something worth listening to. I mean, when I was looking at that podcast with him and JJ Redick, to suppose for a guy who's one of the narratives about him is this IQ, I just thought like it was so much ridiculous stuff said in there that it's kind of unbelievable that we're at this point in society that, well, I don't know. But yeah, to me, LeBron James is just, I've never heard him say anything that you walk away feeling like you gained some insight on something. Like never. Not one time on one interview in 21 years.
It's like Cat Williams said, we cannot allow these liars to rewrite history. And history has told us that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Stephen Wardell Curry, Larry Bird, Magic, all these guys, Hakeem Olajuwon, got it out the mud. They did not have to go seek out greener pastures to go team up with their draft class. They did not have to go get the best shooter subsequent to their era to join their team. They did not have to go get all of these pieces, like AOH said, and become mercenaries and still go to the finals and lose 6 times. When I hear these guys make all these ridiculous, I mean, it's like stuff they say is just like, I can tell they're disconnected from reality. And when they get done, I'm like, what was the end result? Well, it doesn't matter. Did you win or did you lose? I mean, everything you're saying sounds great. It sounds nice. But did you win or did you lose? But it's a team game. I'm like, okay, well, are those appearances? Is that a team accomplishment or is it individual? I mean, I try to tell these guys, like, you guys have no reasoning whatsoever because you want everything to be perfect for him. But then when we point out the flaws and the errors in the reasoning, now we're haters. I'm like, I'm not a hater. I don't know him personally. So let's get away from the emotions, okay? So back to what I said originally. We cannot allow these liars to rewrite history.
Well, these liars like to say things that are intangible. They're hard for people on the spot to prove wrong. Like talking about LeBron James's IQ. Even Skip, who's supposedly a hater, constantly talks about the basketball savant and the intelligence without ever providing an example. They just say these things and people hear it enough and then they start repeating it. I'm like, how? In what way? I mean, I have more examples of him being a basketball moron than him being a basketball savant. But you can argue, oh, well, you're not looking, you should show the examples. I'm like, okay, get your examples of him being a basketball savant, and I'll get my examples of him being a basketball moron. And not just that, the passing, the best passer. Fuck, that's disrespectful and stupid. He makes some good passes. He's a fucking NBA player. That doesn't make him the best passer ever. He's not the best passer on the night that they're saying it. You can look at the other people that they're disrespecting, and it's bullshit. That's not hating on LeBron James. It's hating the LeBron James narrative. It's fucking untrue. Stop saying it.
LeBron James passing is equivalent to his defense in the sense that they take a couple of plays and they try to define his passing by a couple of great passes. It's the same with his defense. They take a couple of great plays and try to define his defense by that. But again, when you compare LeBron to the great passers of basketball history, LeBron should not be listed as a great passer. I mean, he only averages a couple of more assists than Michael Jordan, who supposedly was a ball hog, according to you fanboys.
So real fast, we have 4 more super chats down the line, and then we have 2 callers in the back, Roland Curtis and E-Man. Compare health, life, and dental insurance solutions. I'm just gonna post these up real fast just to try and let the callers on. And then for everyone to respond otherwise. Compare Health, Life, and Dental Insurance Solutions has super chatted AOH and Sports and Fitness Rants, which I'll put up for the next one. $10 for AOH. Love the channel exposing all the flopping around, traveling, and false narratives. And then for Robin, it says Sports and Fitness Rants. Keep it up as always. And then there's also one for me in Uncommon Sense as well. And just give me a second. There's a lot of traffic. User 1990 says Lewinhorst for me, which is hilarious. I agree. And that's what I have to say about that. But thank you, user 1990. Before I let these gentlemen talk, and then Shy Rider Westsider says salute to Uncommon. We got the evil laugh people. Let's do it in order. AOH, what do you got to say? And then Robin, and then Uncommon Sense, and then we'll let the callers on.
Yeah, I don't know how we aren't allowed to talk about basketball, but the walking buffet Windhorse can talk about it, and the leprechaun Nick Wright. I mean, he's like a subhuman. This fucking guy. That guy's never gonna walk onto an athletic field and do a goddamn thing. Stop it. Stop it.
And I just want to say thank you to my people over there at Health, Life, and Dental Insurance, man, holding it down once again. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man, that's continuing to come through with the super chats. Like I said, all the support, man. Much respect. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate it. As far as the evil laugh, that's all you can really do. Yeah, because I mean, what we're dealing with is ridiculous. So, you know, you can either laugh, or I guess some of you fanboys actually want to fight about it, but you know, you're better off laughing about it. So that's what we do over here.
All right. We had more super chats come in, but these gentlemen have been backstage for a while. Roland Curtis, welcome. Do you have a question for an individual or the panel? I'm going to put you on mute because after you ask the question, because I've found over the last couple live streams with I'll leave these people unnamed, but sometimes it devolves into just randomness. So, but I appreciate you, and I know you wouldn't start an argument, but just for the sake of moving along and having the other callers come in. But do you have a question for an individual or the panel? And welcome again.
Yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say really quick. You guys talked about Duncan versus LeBron, and you guys had a good topic last week. I just wanted to say really quick that arguably the biggest false narrative about LeBron is that he's definitively greater than Kobe, Magic, and or Kareem. And I just want to say really quick something about the Spurs legacy that's positive. They demonstrated that the coach can be the leader of the team. Like, even though you have the best player, which is Tim Duncan, and then it went to maybe Parker, then Ginobili, then Kawhi, but they demonstrated that the coach can be the best, the leader, and the best player, and everybody else can just follow. They called him Pop because they kind of Pop short for Popovich, but also that they kind of respected him like a father, like a papa, you know, because they all respected and treated him like a father. But you know, the thing that I liked also is that, like, LeBron was the opposite of that. LeBron, he's the guy that gets all of his coaches fired. There's even rumors that he verbally overrides Ham's coaching plays. So I just like seeing like LeBron is like, you know, even Michael Jordan, the greatest player ever, submitted to Phil Jackson as coach, and LeBron is like the opposite of Tim Duncan, and the opposite of players that know that the coach is the first leader of the team. Then I would just want to say that the Spurs, they really should be credited as far as their effect on LeBron's legacy as being that team that kind of destroyed that aura of invincibility for LeBron James. You know, Michael Jordan was 6-0 in the finals, undefeated, and LeBron's supposed to be the next Jordan. And not only does he lose in his first finals, but he gets swept. And I think that the Spurs could be credited for almost immediately removing LeBron James from any serious GOAT discussions. Um, and then I just want to answer. Somebody said something about. Also, I'll just say that the Spurs, they, the Spurs stopped LeBron from creating a dynasty. You could say the Golden State Warriors then followed that up by stopping him from creating a dynasty in his second run with Cleveland after the Spurs stopped it with the Miami Heat and the first one with Cleveland. And you can say the Denver Nuggets have kind of picked it up with the Lakers, stopping LeBron from dominating in this part of his career. And there was a question about who was the 1990s version of LeBron. I think it was Shaq because they were both first overall picks. They both were Rookie of the Year. Both have 4 rings. They kind of both failed to live up to the potential that everybody expected of them. They both ended up hopping on different teams, chasing championships. I think that Shaq failed to surpass Kareem, and LeBron has failed to surpass Jordan. As far as a question,
Big country.
I would say, let me see. So I've heard Jordan say that Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard ever, and I've heard Michael Jordan say that Larry Bird is the greatest small forward ever. I've never really heard him say who's the best power forward ever or who's the best center ever, although he has shown Hakeem Olajuwon a lot of respect and has often lifted him up as one of the. Actually, he said that might have been the greatest player that he played against during his career. Who would you guys? First of all, have you guys heard Michael Jordan say who was the best power forward or the best center ever? And who would you pair? Who would you put in that team if Michael Jordan at the 2, Magic Johnson at the 1, and Larry Bird at the 3? Who would you put as the 4 and 5 to complete that team? Okay. Thank you for taking the call.
Thank you, Roland. I'm going to put you on mute, and real fast, not to detract from the question, I just want to Shy Rider West Sider gave the super chat to Robin. He says, Sports Fitness Rant, salute. We support you in Chicago. And we have many that have come down the line, but that one may disappear soon, so I wanted to get with that. Aja Moore super chatted me. There's video of LeBron traveling from half court for a dunk. Took 7 steps without one dribble. They just ignore it. Yeah, thank you for super chatting me, Aja Moore, to speak for myself before Robin goes and talks for his thanks. But yeah, no, it's hilarious. And we'll get to the other super chats later. Robin, do you have anything before we start answering Roland Curtis's question?
Yeah, much respect to Chi-Town, man. Shout to Chi-Town. When I was in the Navy, I went to a boot camp out there in Great Lakes, Illinois, which wasn't that far from Chicago. I spent some time out there in that area. Shout out to everybody out there, man. Oh, but let me answer Roland real quick, man. I'll let you guys go, man, because it'll be brief. In the past, we've done, our all-time starting 5. We talk about like our favorite, starting 5. Who would we want for a starting 5? So, for me, when you have a Michael Jordan and he said Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, I would probably put Charles Barkley at the pound forward because Charles Barkley is one of my favorite players of all time. And I have him in my all-time starting 5. I just love Charles Barkley, man. And I would put Hakeem Olajuwon at the 5, man. Hakeem Olajuwon, to me, once again, guys that I grew up watching in the 90s, man. So to answer Roland, that's where I would throw Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon.
All right. Hoop God, what do you have to say? Who would you put?
Yeah, to answer Roland's question, yeah, Michael Jordan did quote Tim Duncan being the greatest power forward that he ever seen. But my starting, like my favorite starting lineup, because I'm gonna give y'all 2 different versions. The first one for my favorite players, I would take Magic, of course, phenomenal point guard, passing, initiating offense, cool. But I'm gonna take Jordan and Kobe and just have them interchangeable. Like you could put either one at the 2, either one at the 3 for their defensive prowess. I know they can hound the other team's best perimeter players, but they're going to show up in that fourth quarter, in that money time, and they're great at the free throw line. Now, this is where it gets tricky. I'm going to take Larry Bird and put him at power forward because I think a lot of people forget. Larry Bird, early on, he played power forward before Kevin McHale replaced Cedric Maxwell, and they put Kevin McHale at the 4 and Bird at the 3 because, I mean, the guy's like 6'10" and a half, so he can play that stretch forward like this modern era, and he can also be a great rebounder on the defensive side. And then, of course, I'm going to take Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon at the 5. I mean, just go look at what that man did to Shaq and David Robinson and Patrick Ewing and all the other centers in the 80s and the 90s. Hell, go look what he did to Kareem his second year in the league. So that'd be my starting 5. But a traditional lineup is going to be Magic, Jordan, Bird, Tim Duncan, Dream. So that's how I would categorize mine.
All right, real fast. I'll address user 1990 super chatted me again. Le Golden Corral Horse. Absolutely hilarious.
Bro,
Thank
that is
you.
hilarious, man. Screenshot
Golden
that
Corral.
for me. Screenshot that for me. Yo, them names are hilarious.
The Golden Corral Horse. I like that.
Yep, absolutely hilarious. User 1990, great stuff. Thank you for the super chat for $2. I'll say my take real fast about who I would put at power forward and center for that lineup. That's not the lineup I would personally have. But I won't get into that. For the question, I'd probably, in respect to that, I'd probably have maybe Tim Duncan and Joker. But that's just some recency bias. But I that wouldn't be my lineup in general. But I like how
that's a deadly lineup.
Yeah, but I think if Joker and Duncan could play together, that would I would love to have seen that. I think it's a great fantasy idea. AOH, what's your take?
I think MJ said that Magic was his choice for point guard. The reason I know that is he just recently was quoted as saying that Isaiah was number 2 for him behind Magic. In this all came up with Isaiah's recent bitching. It's just a matter of time before he re-bitches. Roland went on for quite a long time. He mentioned Kobe toward the beginning. As someone who rooted against Kobe, just because I didn't like the idea of them immediately trying to crown people. It's weird. It's a lot of people talk about the media and the disrespect of Kobe. And back when Kobe was playing early on, people were legitimately arguing that he was better than Jordan. The narrative seems to be really important for the NBA, for there to always be a debate about the GOAT. I mean, now it seems to have just fallen to, yes, unquestionably, Kobe is second to Jordan, except for the people that want to defend LeBron James. But I just got to remind people, there was a time where they actually were trying to say Kobe was better than Jordan. It wasn't a definite Kobe is number 2. And I think that just speaks to how the media controls what people are talking about. Because how is it possible that back then there was an actual debate between the two of them, and now it's unquestionably not Kobe? And as time goes on, I thought that Kobe, after Kobe's death, was going to get elevated. They're just shoving him further down. Interestingly enough, in the media, I think actual basketball players are not doing that to Kobe, most of them. But anyone else, you guys know where I'm coming from, or is this left field?
No, AOH, you exactly right. And I was going to speak on that. It's all about a phrase I like to use called depiction affects your perception. How they depict you ultimately will determine how you're perceived if you have an untrained eye. Now, all of you gentlemen on here pretty much can see past the media and their hijinks. But I'm saying that because they can take the impressionable mind and say, hey, this guy is possibly better than Michael Jordan, right? And then they will hit you with those operative words that will eventually make you believe it unless you can see above the fray. And that's why I always look back on it. Like, I do remember those comparisons vividly. In 2010, I remember Mark Jackson saying, Kobe Bryant, without a doubt, will be a better player than Michael Jordan. You don't believe that. But you got to say, I remember that time, yes. And Kobe's number 2 on my list, by the way.
Uncommon Sense and AOH. I don't think you said your lineup. Who would you? Maybe you did. Maybe I missed it. Who would you put at power forward and centered with Bird, Magic, and Jordan, and then Uncommon Sense after that?
Uncommon and Robin go first. I don't know. I'm always torn on that. I'm not going to give you a solid answer. I can't. It's too tough.
Gotcha.
I would actually go with I'm gonna put Tim Duncan at power forward. I'm gonna put Hakeem at center, and I just think with that You know, again, Tim Duncan being the big fundamental, you know, he's going to give it all out there. He's going to do the right things, coupled with Jordan and Bird, to me, who I always bring up as arguably the two most competitive people in the history of the game. And then to have Magic, who I agree is the greatest point guard, and with Akeem Olajuwon, who I think is the most skilled center that we've seen, and, you know, obviously a serious defensive presence. I don't think you can go wrong with that lineup.
And I know Robin said Duncan and Hakeem.
Barkley.
I'm sorry. You did. You said Barkley. My bad. Barkley and Hakeem. But yeah, my bad. Do you want to do you have the alibi for it, or are you just going to leave it as you don't know, AOH, before we move on to the next caller in the super chats?
I think we better move on.
Okay.
I got to sign out. I got to sign out pretty soon. Just a warning.
Gotcha. Roland, you have anything for us before we let the next caller on?
No, I just I just wanted to add on, because Mark Jackson did say that about Kobe could positively be better than Jordan, but then later on, after Kobe and the Lakers lost that 3-1 lead to the Suns in 2006, Mark Jackson said that he spoke in third person. He said that, you know, Mark Jackson, you're crazy, you're better than that. So he pretty much retracted that statement. And I just wanted to leave you guys with this, because like I said, when you guys the topic was what was the Spurs effect on the NBA and on LeBron's legacy. So I wanted to say something earlier about I know I said a lot. I wanted to say something positive about the Spurs legacy. I wanted to say the effect on LeBron, and I wanted to end it with a critique of the Spurs legacy. And, like, you know, you guys are welcome to agree or disagree. You know, I know I had that disagreement with Rex the other about a month ago or so, and you know, I'll be the first to admit that Rex has forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know. So that's the same for you guys. So you guys can disagree with this, but I don't consider the Spurs to be a dynasty, and I also don't consider the Golden State Warriors to be a dynasty. And my reason for this is that, first of all, that's why I wanted to ask you guys what your definition of a dynasty is. I do like the three at least the 3 rings in a row definition, because it's more reflective of the historic definition of a dynasty throughout history, as far as succession of rule uninterrupted, you know, so that the fact that the Spurs never won championships back to back, they won every other year or something like that. Also, the Golden State Warriors, yeah, they did win that back to back with KD. I think a lot of people would agree that was a different team when you bring someone like a KD into it. But also, I would say that even though 2 in a row is a succession, it's a very weak succession. It's a very minimum succession. I feel like you would like to show a dominant succession. 3 would be something that most wouldn't be able to argue. And Isaiah Thomas even said that his Detroit Pistons were not a dynasty. They won back to back, and he said that if they had won the 3rd one, then they would have been a dynasty. So that's my critique of the Spurs, is that they weren't a dynasty. I also would say that there is an asterisk to their first championship. I'm not gonna, you know, that they will say they love to say, oh, you know, you guys only want to put an asterisk on LeBron's championships, but you wouldn't do it for anybody else. I'm one of the I'm one of the few who says no. The 2012 short season championship that LeBron has an asterisk. The 2020 bubble championship definitely has multiple asterisks on that one. And I put an asterisk on the and I put an asterisk on the 1999 championship that the Spurs won. And so I'll just leave. So my question for you guys is, it's a kind of 3-part. What is your definition of a dynasty? Are the Spurs and the Golden State Warriors dynasties, and why or why not? And I'll leave you guys with that. Appreciate you guys taking my call.
Thank you, RC. We're going to go to the next caller, but that's good food for thought. Thank you very much. AOH said you said you had to go. Do you have any last words for everybody?
Thanks, everybody that tuned in. Thanks for all of our supporters, my channel and everyone else's channels. Another shout out to Uncommon for his musical skills. For those of you who didn't hear that shout out at the beginning, thank you, Dart. Hoops God, always appreciate your insight. And of course, Sports and Fitness Rants, thank you. Thanks all of you guys. And a reminder, I'm gonna wait until tomorrow and release a pretty mean video about 2011.
Thank you
be good, man.
Thank you very much for coming.
Hey,
Reach out to
indeed.
you,
Take
man.
it
I'll
easy,
send you
bro.
the email.
Yeah, take it easy.
Take it easy.
We got some super chats, and then I'm going to let both E-Man and Morion comment at the same time so they could ask the questions together. And then soon after they call in, we'll end it after that. But I'll do the super chats real fast. The John, well, it's still somehow on here, but it went off the edge of my chat screen. But super chat, IQ is so great, but can't play with an assistant to benefit role players, not effective off ball or post up. This GOAT propaganda is bad for his brand. Uncommon sense, what do you have to say about that since it wasn't addressed to anybody?
I mean, yes, it's completely correct. Again, to me, that's one of the things that I've said has been a hindrance for LeBron James' career is that he is he can only play one way. And to me, that's been, that has been consistent about LeBron. That's one of the things that he's consistent at is he can only play one way. So yeah, I totally 100% agree with that.
All right. We have Brian Law. He had wanted to address this to the panel, but we'll send it to Robin because we got the callers and we're going to be wrapping it up soon. Do you think you would be as critical of LeBron if he and his media cronies didn't make a concerted effort to shove his greatness down your throat?
Yeah, see, this is why we're here, because once again, we're not being critical of LeBron James in that sense where critical is a negative. What we're doing is setting the record straight here. We're telling you the truth. We're stopping the lies and the narratives. So when we talk about the media, it's not just about the media talking about LeBron. I would have no problem with the media celebrating LeBron James. No one has a problem with the media celebrating a great player. The problem is that they must continue to do what? Tear down the previous eras to lift up LeBron James through the narratives and the lies. That's the problem. So we're not being critical of LeBron James in a sense of we're just talking about him to talk about him and we're nitpicking his greatness here. They're promoting LeBron James through lies, essentially, and we can't allow this to stand. So that's really what it's about. If the media was just celebrating LeBron James for his greatness, for what he's done for the game, things of that nature, that would be one thing. That's not what they're doing, though. They're lying to the people out there. And it's important that we push against this stuff.
All right. We're going to let E-Man and Marion, a.k.a. Phoenix, I don't know, it's going off the edge. That looks like the fitness guy. But yeah, gentlemen, welcome. And what are the questions you have for the panel? We'll start with E-Man first and then Marion, Phenomenal Fitness. There you go, not Phoenix, Phenomenal Fitness. E-Man, what's your question first, and then Phenomenal Fitness after that?
Yo, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I had a question about LeBron, right? So with his finals record being like 4-6, if it was like 4-0, so let's say those 6 finals losses, he loses like the conference finals, right? If he was 4-0, would that be better for his legacy or would it be worse?
All right. And Phenomenal Fitness, what is your question?
What's good, y'all?
What's
How's
up?
it going?
What's up, man?
Shout out to Uncommon Sense, Sports and Fitness, Rants. I appreciate the shout outs y'all been giving me as well. What's up, E-Man? So I know that we saw that podcast with JJ Redick. I already made a video on it clowning it because that was a joke. But have y'all seen Kobe Bryant's detail? And could y'all explain to the
Yes.
people how
Yes.
it's night and day between the two?
Yes. I've seen all of them. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, can you say the question again? I'm sorry. Kobe
I
Bryant
said
and what?
his detail. He had a series where he would break down basketball fundamentals and tape and stuff called
Yep.
Detail.
Okay. I'm gonna mute you two gentlemen. But thank you for the questions, and I'll let you guys. I'll unmute you after everyone goes through what y'all to say. Uncommon Sense, do you think that 4-0 would be better than 4-6? And did you see the Kobe Bryant stuff?
I do think 4-0 would be better than 4-6 for LeBron. I mean, obviously, not having those loss again, because I feel like if you lose 6 times in the finals, to me, that speaks to is something wrong with you. Like there's something wrong with your mental toughness, with your mental stamina to keep up a certain amount of intensity for a whole series. To have more losses then you have one. But I will say this: while I think 4-0 would be better for LeBron, if LeBron James got that 4-0 through the same means that he has them, if he got it through joining super teams and through flopping and all this stuff, I'm not sure if I would have any more respect for him than I do now. And as far as, the Kobe Bryant and LeBron James thing, I think this kind of goes back to what I said. To me, when you hear Kobe talk basketball, it sounds like someone who actually knows what he's talking about. When you hear LeBron James talk about anything, it doesn't have to be basketball. When LeBron James opens his mouth, it sounds like someone who is trying to convince you that he knows something that he doesn't really know. I mean, that's just the way I feel every time I hear LeBron James open his mouth. And when I hear Kobe Bryant talk, when you hear Michael Jordan talk, when you hear Larry Bird talk, when you hear any of these people who've reached this greatness, when they talk about the game, you feel like you're actually gaining some kind of insight from them. But this is not the case with LeBron James.
All right. Robin, what do you got to say about all that?
Yeah, well, I say this as it pertains to the 4-0 record. I mean, on paper, 4-0 looks better than 4-6. Absolutely. So on paper, yes, 4-0 is better. But see, that's not really what he's asking us here, because this is the LeBron James fan club. This is what they do. They try to sneak these things in here. So what he's saying is, we're saying that the losses only matter because they're in the finals. But if they weren't in the finals, they happen in the Eastern Conference finals, for example, then they wouldn't matter as much. They're trying to be slick here. But this is the thing. This the reason why LeBron James would never be 4-0 in the finals is because what we're always alluding to, the competition. The reason why he went to that many finals because of the weak Eastern Conference, weak Eastern Conference. So if we think about it that way, and you talk about LeBron James being 4-6 in the finals, what does that highlight? It highlights that he may have been the best team in his conference, but he was nowhere near the best team in the finals. That shows to the weakness of the both conferences. But let's think about this, for example. It's not necessarily about LeBron James being 4-6 or having 6 finals losses. It's that he's lost more than he's won. So if we just think about the finals, for example, LeBron James has lost 2 finals where he was leading 2-1. He was up 2-1 in 2011. He lost 3 in a row and lost 4-2. He was up 2-1 in 2015, lost 3 in a row and lost 4-2. So if LeBron James just wins those 2 series, which he had the advantage, he was up, had the lead late in some of those games, the other games. If he wins those series, all of a sudden LeBron James is 6-4 in the finals. We could put an asterisk on the bubble if we want to, but he's 6-4 all of a sudden on paper. All of a sudden now LeBron James looks better, but the problem for LeBron James, like my man Uncommon Sense said, the problem for the LeBron James fans, they never want to come to terms with. The reason we highlight LeBron James' 6 losses is because it came while he was building his super teams, while he was putting the odds in his favor. That's why we highlight that more for LeBron James than someone like a Jerry West, for example. Jerry West is 1-8, but no one faults him for those 8 losses like they fault LeBron James because he didn't have the opportunity to stack the deck in his favor. As it pertains to the Kobe Bryant and the details that my man Phenomenal Fitness was talking about, the only one that I can speak on that I actually watched was the one when he broke down Scottie Pippen's defense. I mean, my goodness, man. He went into details like it said, it's called detail for a reason. He broke it down, like he said, like my man in comment said, as a guy who understands the game at a molecular level, far beyond what we see, what we can believe. But when you hear LeBron James speak, it's nowhere near that level. So absolutely, the way Kobe Bryant broke down Scottie Pippen's defense, man, it was something else, man.
Real fast, before we let Hoop God give his take, Uncut Hoops is saying that he wants to come on and do the live stream. He says he doesn't understand how to do it. Uncut Hoops, last time I checked, maybe I'm mistaken, but I tried reaching out to you via email. I don't think you have an email associated with your YouTube. You can email me at michaeljordanfans@gmail.com. It's also on my website or my YouTube channel. And you can email me and I'll set you up. It's not that hard. I promise you it's not that hard. But if you go and you email me, I'll set you up and I'm excited to see you in the future. Hoop God, what's your take on the 4-0 and then also, or 4-0 is better than 4-6 and then the Kobe show?
Yeah, so let me echo what Uncommon Sense stated in Sports and Fitness Rants. Yeah, and I'm not saying this to the guy who asked that question, but that is a tactic that those guys tend to use. would he be better with the 4-0 versus the 4-6? So to address that first and foremost, I'll cut it down because it's a hypothetical essentially, but I don't mind doing the hypotheticals. If LeBron James could have just simply had a Hakeem Olajuwon back-to-back run, I could respect that far more than quitting multiple times and linking up with the best players in the league to make your route easier. And I'm saying that to say this. Had LeBron James went back-to-back in Cleveland, like never mind Miami, never mind LA, just stay in Cleveland. That's where you got drafted. That's where you're going to be known. Had he had a Hakeem Olajuwon playoff run leading in all 5 major categories for the entire playoffs, not just one series, and then thoroughly dismantling the other small forward or power forward, whoever was going to be his matchup, and holding them to sub 40 from the field, being the best defender, defensive anchor, and rim protection, I would have far more respect. I'm like, you know what? Hey, man, he got it done when he got there, right? Now, granted, if the front office didn't surround him with the right talent, cool. But when he had his opportunity, he took advantage, he got to the mountaintop, and he planted his flag. That's how I would categorize that. But no, like Uncommon said, if he's 4-0 or 3-0, whatever, and he's still flopping, flailing, and begging for help, no, bro, you still gonna get the same treatment. No matter how much y'all try to move the goalposts, how much y'all try to use hypotheticals, it's still gonna be the same result if he does not change his style of play. Okay, so that's my part on that. And on the detail, yes, I've watched Kobe Bryant's detail on the Scottie Pippen, like his defensive prowess, genius level. I've watched his detail on Kevin Durant going against LeBron in the 2018 finals, like how he's breaking down where Kevin Durant has those 1-2 dribble pull-ups, phenomenal. Like to me, that's a basketball savant. Like he can explain to you at the very basic level what this guy is doing before he does it, while he's in the moment, and ultimately when he completes the shot. Then he also done it with LeBron James. And this is what really made me pay attention to the quote-unquote field goal percentage that his fans love to utilize. They'll come out and say, oh, LeBron shot 52% from the field. I'm like, where's he shooting from? Oh, why does that matter? Bro, if you shooting that point blank at the rim, of course you're going to shoot 52% from the field. And then you jacking up these long threes. Like, bro, what are you doing in the in-between game? And I'm saying that because Kobe Bryant pointed out so many, like, I would say ill-advised shots that LeBron James basically settled for. Being guarded by Stephen Curry at one point in time, being guarded by Andre Iguodala at one point in time. And this is another thing, too. When you go watch that detail, LeBron looked so uncomfortable shooting those shots. And I don't know who said it earlier, but I know that's a phrase we've thrown out here. It's called body language. Your body language does not lie. When I saw that detail, what that told me, he does not practice these shots. What that told me was the defense has forced him into a compromised position that he doesn't want to be in, so he doesn't know how to react because he has a limited bag. Shout out to Scap Attack. That's why they call him the bagless one, because he can only do 3 things. He's either going to freight train to the goal, he's either going to do that step back, ridiculous looking 3-ball that takes 5 seconds to get off, or he's going to try to make an ill-advised pass that a high IQ team is going to pick off, like the great primetime Deion Sanders. I mean, when you look at this guy, he's so easily to dissect that when he gets to the finals, and we have to constantly tell his fans it's his fault, because when he can't play his style and the opponent forces him into doing something else, he quits. And then the media does what? Oh, well, why did J.R. Smith do that? Okay, well, why didn't LeBron train J.R. Smith? Hey, if we in this situation right here, either call a timeout or immediately put the ball back up. I mean, just put a shot up, get fouled, do something, but don't run way back to the half-court line. No, LeBron James, that's your fault. You didn't train him up. So that's my take on that.
Compare Health, Life, and Dental Insurance Solutions. Thank you for becoming a member. You're now a Michael Jordan fan. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your takes, and I love your handle. For me, for the answer of the is 4-0 better than 4-6? To me, it's the same thing. The only important part of that is the 4. The 6 or the 0 behind it, to me, doesn't really matter. It means that you didn't get there, because if you go and you can attach that to anything else, but people go and they regard that as the finals record. So to me, what is a more impressive finals record? The most impressive finals record is Bill Russell's, in my opinion, even though he's got a 1 on the end of it, 11. However, in respect to the question at hand, it doesn't make a difference in my opinion for reality of it. However, if I had to say what looks prettier, 4-0 looks prettier versus 4-6. But it doesn't really matter either way in my opinion. And I haven't watched the Kobe show to be fair, so I have no comment on that. Um, I'm gonna let E-Man go on first, and then do you have anything else to say before in regards to our takes in regards to 4-0 versus 4-6?
Nah, man, I just appreciate being on the show, man.
All right, thank you very much, E-Man. I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Yep. And then Phenomenal Fitness. What do you have to say?
Well, I appreciate y'all letting me on. And like y'all was saying, the Buffalo Bills, they went to 4 Super Bowls. Don't nobody talk about them. So getting there is one thing. If you're good enough to get there, I feel like you should be good enough to win it. So that's to speak to his conference being weak. He got there, and what happened? He didn't just lose. He got swept twice, got gentlemen swept twice. That lets you know you didn't even belong there. And you had a stacked deck. So you stacked the deck, and you still can't do it. And you have these beautiful records against the Eastern teams. Get to the West, and you get shellacked. That shows me he didn't belong there. And even his wins weren't that convincing. Even the bubble team, you beat the Heat, and they took you 6 games with just Jimmy Butler because the other 2 great players got injured. So that lets you know his basketball IQ is overrated, and he believes his own hype. But that's all I gotta say. Thank you guys. I appreciate y'all letting me on.
Yeah, mate. Shout out to you.
Yo, thank you.
Thank you, Phenomenal Fitness. Yeah, I think this is a good spot to cut this off. And I'll talk with you gentlemen about this later if y'all want to adjust the schedule for next week. I'm unavailable on Sunday because when I'm not trying to do this live stream on Sundays, I do have a life and I'm actually moving somewhere on Sundays. I'll be unavailable on Sunday. But I'll talk to you gentlemen on the panel if y'all want to adjust maybe a little earlier on the week offline. But in regards to this, I think this was a great live stream. We had Angry Old Hoops on earlier. Uncut Hoops said that he is willing to join the panel, which is great news, and I'm excited to have him on.
Let's go.
Indeed.
But Uncommon Sense, you have any last words for everybody?
The same last words I say every time. Just keep supporting all these content creators who again are putting out the truth. I think it's important, and honestly, I think it's about more than basketball for me. To me, it's about just combating people who are telling blatant lies and like Sports and Fitness Rants always says, deliberately trying to tear down the past and tell you untruths about the past. So for me, it's about more than basketball. It's about life and not letting people just be able to say lies without it being combated. So yeah, keep supporting these channels. Shout out to everybody who supports the channels, who's called in, and thanks Dart for putting this together. And we'll see you next time.
Absolutely, Robin. Sports and Fitness Ranch. You have anything for the people?
Of course I do. Of course I gotta shout out to people, man. Shout out to everybody out there as usual, man. Everybody that's ever, like I said, donated to any of our channels, your comments, liking, sharing, sharing your story. I mean, people have told me stories, about, Michael Jordan when they were growing up and all. I mean, like I said, man, this is what it's about, y'all. I told you, I literally started this channel because I could not believe the things that I was hearing. And I remember telling my wife one day, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna start a YouTube channel and I'm gonna just talk about what I grew up watching. And she didn't think that, she couldn't really comprehend what I meant. I was like, I'm literally going to talk about what I grew up watching. I remember this stuff. Like I said, I'm blessed to remember a lot of these things vividly, man. Like I said, I'm a true fan of basketball. I grew up watching stuff. And that's what's always been about on my channel. I don't care if you think Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. None of that stuff really matters at the end of the day, man. It's all about the facts, and it's all about setting the record straight and stopping these narratives, stop them from tearing down the past, man. So shout out to everybody on Common Sense, man. My man Michael Jordan fans are the best, man. Hoop God, everyone that called in, Angry Old Hoops, my man NNB Sports. Just like I said, everyone out there, man, has been supporting us. Shout out to Uncut Hoops, man. I hope he decides to come through. Like I said, I'm truly, truly humbled by all the support, man, by everybody, guys. Shout out to everybody. Thank you.
All right. Real fast. Compare health, life, and dental insurance. He super chatted somebody, but he's talking to me. But he didn't say who he super chatted, but it wasn't me. He says MJ fans are the best. Just subscribe to your channel too. Great job. Thank you very much. I appreciate you becoming a member, and whoever you gave the super chat to, thank you for that as well. Hoop God, do you have anything for the people?
Man, the other gentlemen, they pretty much have said everything that needs to be said outside of, man, make sure, hey, chat, I mean, yeah, people in the comments, make sure y'all follow all these guys. Like Sports and Fitness Rant said, it is our job. It is our ultimate duty to set the record straight, not allow these narratives to be spent, not allow the lies to be promoted out here without being challenged with the facts. Because again, the facts do not lie. And I am humbly blessed, and I thoroughly enjoy dialoguing with you guys, because I can honestly say, even with the TikTok guys I talk ball with, I'll dialogue. Like, I learned something from Sports and Fitness Rants, Uncommon Sense, Dart, Rex, NMB, Angry Old Hoops. I always learn something, because when you can dialogue with like minds, like they say, like minds think alike, right? You take something away from it. It's a learning experience, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So that's all I got to say on this. I'll be looking forward to next week, or however we decide to correlate and get that one going, because I'm a sports guy at heart. Like, I'm a sports fanatic. I love talking sports. Like, I can talk sports all day long. Like I literally have to like get a schedule set so my wife don't get upset, because in her mind she legitimately thinks I love sports over her. Don't tell her that, but I kind of do. You know what I'm saying? So I don't tell her that though. But yeah, man, I enjoy dialoguing with you guys, man.
Absolutely. I want to thank the chat. You guys have a spot on the right side of the screen for all of our channels that we stream to. Everyone from Uncommon Sense channel, Sports and Fitness Rants channel, AOH's channel earlier. Thank you for joining. It's awesome. And you guys can look back and watch what you said at times, who you interacted with on the right side of the screen, with everybody across the channels. You guys make this happen. So thank you very much for your participation, watching us, super chatting us, being members, all of the above. Thank you very much for everything. And I want to thank the panel on Common Sense. Thank you for joining us again.
Absolutely.
Sports and Fitness Rants, Robin, of course, and then Hoop God, AOH, who had left earlier. And I'm looking forward to Uncut Hoops joining us soon, amongst others. Everyone that's still in the chat, please let the people know. Let Scab Attack know. Let Dreamers Pro know that this is the show to be at, so we can go and fight all the narratives and have a united front and just have the greatest show in the world. And I think we already have it, but let's make it better. Let them know. And thank you all again. And just as a reminder, Michael Jordan fans are the